royal events like Trooping the Colour still resonate with modern Britain? Or are we holding on to rituals that really reflect the country, and do we really care?
I think the spectacle is important because it's symbolic, OK, and people really respond to that notion of heritage and grandeur. But I think it's about more than that. It's about constitutional monarchy. And there are three key points here. Constitutional monarchy produces higher standards of living than republics. It protects property rights and individual property because in the long term, it's not as vulnerable to ideology. And it holds a check on politicians as well. I'd much rather have King Charles than President Blair. And it's about continuity.
Legoland is just a short hop, skip and jump away from Windsor Castle. It gets many more visitors than any royal castle or other event. So we don't need the royals to have spectacle. We can have spectacle without it. And
okay,
I think,
you're not suggesting chopping their heads off, are you?
Oh, no, of course not. Of course not. No, I'd be very kind and gentle. But the one point that was made was that the royals are part of British culture and tradition. Well, in fact, the royals are German descent, who were basically, by their own internal agreement, took over the British throne.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Tuesday the 24th of June, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So breaking news this morning, the ceasefire has been broken just hours after American President Donald Trump confirmed an end to the fighting between Israel and Iran. It's already been violated. Welfare rebellion. It's up to over 100 Labour MPs now are threatening to defy Sir Keir Starmer over his plans to cut disability benefits in the welfare reform bill next week. Defence pledge doubts the Prime Minister will approve an extra £40 billion on our military to meet the NATO target of 5% of spending of GDP by 2035. He'll be nowhere near Parliament at that point. What an extraordinary pledge.
They describe being ignored, gaslit, lied to, manipulated, and damaged further by the inability for a trust to simply be honest with them.
So that's the Health Secretary Wes Streeting launching another investigation into NHS maternity services after meeting families bereaved by failings. We want to know your experience of having a baby on the NHS. And Palestine Action banned. The Home Secretary will prescribe the movement as terrorists after there was chaos in central London yesterday between protesters and the police. Lime bike louts. Friend of the show, Dame Joan Collins. We love her, don't we? Vents her frustration at abandoned hire bikes clustered together on a London pavement. Do you have the same problem where you live? We bet you do. And in the UK yesterday, there was a world-famous visitor. He met the King and the Prime Minister. There was hardly any coverage. Can you guess who it was? We'd love to hear what you think this morning. Send your views, post your comments. Visit gbnews.com/your say. First, though, your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you. The headlines at 9:30. The Israeli military says it's identified missiles launched from Iran towards Israel in what appears to be a violation of a ceasefire agreed between the two nations. Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel spoke to GB News ahead of the reported violation.
Will it hold? And the onus has to be now on Iran to stop firing missiles and to actually come to the table.
Starmer's due to announce an increase in defence spending to 5% of GDP, but not until 2035 to meet an era of radical uncertainty, he says. Meanwhile, the government published its national security strategy, which said the UK needed to be more competitive and robust in science, education, trade and technology. Amazon says it'll invest £40 billion in the UK over the next 3 years as it creates thousands of jobs and opens 4 new warehouses. And the winning design for the National Memorial for Queen Elizabeth II will also feature her husband, Prince Philip. And those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, Sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Very good morning. Tuesday morning, this is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
And we're going to turn straight to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, because Donald Trump very proudly announced the ceasefire, kicked in 5 o'clock our time. It appears it hasn't even lasted 4 hours. What's happening?
It was all looking so promising until a ballistic missile was fired from Iran towards northern Israel. It was taken out. I want to show you some images, actually, of a fragment of this missile, or fragments of the missile that landed in a field, in a farmer's field in northern Israel. We don't have those images, OK.
Oh. You can tell us about them.
Yes, well, it basically shows the fragments of the missile in a farmer's field.
Right.
Next to either a donkey or an ass.
There.
Maybe you can give me your expert opinion. I think this is a donkey. It might be an ass. Jack Price, our producer out there, said it was definitely a horse until I persuaded him that maybe it was a donkey. What do you think?
Yeah, but it doesn't look bothered by the bomb.
Well, it's a poor little animal. I'm sure it got a bit of a fright when this came down. And really it puts it up in the air, I think, in terms of where we are with this ceasefire, because we've just heard from the Israeli Defence Minister, Israel Katz, who says that he has now ordered and instructed the IDF to carry out intense strikes in the heart of regime targets in Tehran, in the capital of Iran. So in the minutes and hours ahead, let's see what Israel does that might elicit another response from Iran. And if that happens, we're back to the tit for tat.
Except the United States, presumably, is stepping back now.
Well, I don't know what President Trump will do.
Congratulations to
No, exactly, and it was classic Donald Trump trolling, wasn't it? Where he, in light of the strike, such as it was on the Al Udeid airbase, the US airbase in Qatar last night, he said, thanks so much to the Iranians for giving us advance notice of this strike. We were able to sort of take precautionary measures and ensure no one was injured.
Which
so,
they did
as I say, classic Trump trolling.
And we had that earlier with Iran before, when the US took out some senior Iranian officials. It's like they feel they
Qasem Soleimani,
That's right.
Yeah.
So it feels like they have to send a bomb over or a missile over to tick the box so they can say to the Iranian people, look, we've taken on the dreaded American oppressor. They controlled the media there anyway, so they'd have given a different version of what happened.
And that's why this morning is so strange to me, that we should get a ballistic missile launched after the ceasefires come into effect, because it's clear, I think, from last night, the way in which Iran conducted that missile strike on the Al Udeid base, that it was, it was providing an off-ramp there, that it would give the warning, it was plenty of time to get people out of harm's way and to shoot them down. They can say to their people that they've struck the great Satan, and all is good, and then they go down the road to ending hostilities. But for whatever reason, a ballistic missile has come across. And I think it will give the hardliners in the Israeli government the excuse they need to go back in to Iran, because there was quite a significant attack on Beersheba in southern Israel just in the hours before the ceasefire, in which 4 people have died, dozens have been injured, as an apartment block there was targeted and effectively collapsed. You see the images there, a really significant direct strike by one of these ballistic missiles. That would normally elicit a very significant response from the Israelis. But I think Benjamin Netanyahu, it seems, was willing to abide by the ceasefire and just not retaliate on that. Now I think all bets are off.
Absolutely fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think what Trump has done brilliantly, Mark, and tell me whether you see this differently, he's taken out, if Iran did have, if they were edging close to having a nuclear bomb capability, and Netanyahu has been warning of that for decades.
30 years.
30 years. They're going to have it in 6 months, 25 years. They're going to have it in 6 months. Who knows? If he has done that, then that's great, marvellous. He's saved us all from potential nuclear war at the hands of Iran. But he also kept a lot of the sort of the neocons in America happy by going in and doing what he did. He's played an absolute blinder again, because he's surprised those who thought he was war hungry by apparently bringing what could have been a bigger war to an end really quickly.
Yes, I mean, he's a president as well, remember, that has said he is very, very averse to sort of foreign adventures in terms of wars. He didn't want to repeat the mistakes of previous presidents, but he's shown as well, I think, that there are limits and that he will strike out when he feels the need is there, but in a measured way. He doesn't, despite, again, this is the sort of trolling, playful nature of Trump when he puts out the, do I want regime change? Maybe I do. MIGA as opposed to MAGA type stuff that he was putting out there, but not really wanting to go down that potentially very messy road of careful what you wish for, because you take out the current regime, you don't know what you're going to be in for further down the line with whoever takes over. And yes, it seems certainly that, you know, he'd played a bit of a blinder. You never get those who just hate everything that Trump stands for to acknowledge that. But if at the end of the day he could have brought an end to the hostilities, then that would be good. I think the hope has to be that, you know, there's a bit of a tit for tat, but it can calm down again. They can get back on that road to peace, because it's in no one's interest for this to continue to flare up in that region.
And I wonder if we will hear much about this, the so-called ceasefire at the NATO summit today. We think the President of the United States will be there. Trump, Prime Minister, will certainly be there. He's always abroad, isn't he? Let's be honest. We're talking about that a little later. But that will be a big part. I mean, that's the only story in town, isn't it? Because unless they talk about Ukraine as well. But it seems Iran is more pressing.
Yeah, there is no doubt that that will come up, and President Trump, if things are continuing, if there are more launches from both sides today, there will be some choice words, I'm sure, from the US president there. But yes, it will be talking about defence in general, because remember, of course, you've got this big announcement, supposedly, where all the NATO members are going to agree to 5%. But to me, and speaking to those in the defence sector, they see this as, just like the Conservatives have said, smoke and mirrors. It's more classic jam tomorrow. What he's actually agreeing to here is an increase in defence spending in 2 governments' time. Who knows who's going to be in office there? I mean, what is that actually really committing to?
He'll be Lord Starmer of somewhere by then, because he'll be long gone as Prime Minister.
If the threat is so grave, if we have really you know, crossed over into such an unstable environment around the world, why is that money not going into defence right away, not just to 2.5%, but up to 3 or 3.5%? So it can really make a difference, because 2.5%, let's be honest, doesn't even fix the sort of the structural currently has, without paying for all the big programmes that Sir Keir Starmer has spoken about, the new 12 AUKUS submarines. There's no way you can get that out of 2.5% of GDP.
It is smoke and mirrors, or it's just downright not telling it straight.
And we're asking our audience this morning, what are you going to spend a load of money on in 2035?
You're going to buy a £50 million house.
I'm going to buy. You say what you like, can't you? What are you going to do?
Yeah, she can buy another.
You just said another one in my head. Yeah, you know what? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Nobody falls for it either.
By 2035, I'm going to spend 5% of GDP on military. No,
I'm going to buy another karaoke bar in Bangkok.
How can I live with you in a karaoke bar in Bangkok?
I used to have one a long time ago, so.
You didn't?
I did.
What was your favourite karaoke number?
Well, I used to sing the odd Thai song, but it was usually Frank Sinatra, some of the classics.
What Thai song did you sing?
Paul Anka, Diane.
No, I want to know what Thai song you sang.
Lokai Rakai
Oh, dear.
Well, things have taken a slight
Who'd have thought that about our Home and Security editor?
Well, there you go.
There's a stage show. There's a stage show called The Lady Boys of Bangkok. Perhaps you could join it.
There was quite a few lady boys used to come to my karaoke bar.
I think we should move on, gentlemen.
Right. We're getting to know quite a lot about our Home and Defence editor.
Sir Keir Starmer,
The rebellion now is up to 108 MPs who've put their names to a motion saying they will not support the welfare reform bill, which we voted on next Tuesday. Vicky Foxcroft, who was a government whip, her job would have been to corral MPs into voting for it next week. She is part of that rebellion, as is Lou Hague, who Starmer sacked as Transport Secretary a few months ago.
Let's bring in Labour's Lord Steve McCabe now. Good morning, Steve. Good to see you again. Right, how problematic is this rebellion going to be for the Prime Minister?
Well, I mean, at this stage, it's a problem, but that's a job for the government whips.
Well, one of them has just joined the rebellion, Steve.
Pardon?
One of them's just joined the rebellion, Vicky Foxcroft.
I think one of them's resigned because he didn't want to do that job in the whip's office, of course. Look, it's not unusual for Labour MPs to have difficulty with welfare reform. Not at all unusual. They spend a lot of their time working and campaigning with disability groups. So I'm not at all surprised. The bottom line here is that we do have to reduce that benefits bill. We do have to understand why we've had such this massive post-pandemic rise in sickness and disability benefits. And it was a manifesto commitment that if people can work, they should work, and that Labour would prepare a plan to get people back into work. So, I mean, my own view is it's difficult. There's some things the government might have to look at, but I would be astonished if this was to succeed as a rebellion. And of course, it assumes that the Speaker will select that amendment in the first place.
I hear what you say, Steve, and I've covered a lot of these rebellions in my time, but this is unusual in the fact there are 13 chairmen and women of select committees, MPs of big power, like the Treasury Select Committee chairman, Dame Meg Hillier. And it's not a little amendment saying you're cutting too much. What they're saying is we don't support the entire bill. So if they do get 78 MPs across the line and all opposition MPs vote with them, the bill is dead and buried. And that will happen in the first week of the first anniversary of this brilliant new Labour government you support.
Well, it's true. If they got those numbers, if the entire range of opposition parties, all, and they may well, for opportunist reasons, want to take that line, but if they all were to gang up and vote against, and I think I thought it was 83, you say 79. I mean, it does come down to numbers, Andrew. But if that happened, yes, of course, it would be a disaster. That's absolutely true. But I think the very first line of the amendment acknowledges that there has to be benefit reform. So, I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, yes, we're in favour of this, but we don't want to do too much of it. I mean, I think there are things the government could offer. I remember from my own time on the Works and Pensions Select Committee that the more that's done with local groups to get people back into work, the more successful it is. So, I mean, if the government was to come out with more information about their back-to-work plans and how they're going to involve disability groups in that, I think that would be a good concession.
All right.
Steve McCabe, Lord McCabe.
Thank you, Steve.
You should call him Lord McCabe, really.
Lord Steve McCabe.
Yeah.
Right, still to come, we want to hear from you. Have a guess. Which famous face was in London yesterday?
Met
so
the King.
Famous.
Met the King. Met the Prime Minister. Met the Speaker of the House of Commons. Is it George Clooney, I hear you saying?
No.
Brad Pitt?
No.
Tom Cruise?
No.
Well,
who could it be?
You've got to guess.
Someone who previously...
We want you to send some ideas.
First of all, though, holiday some top European destinations. There you go.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you or someone you know is heading further afield over the next few days, you can expect widespread sunshine across the Mediterranean, and it's going to be breezy for Greece. The usual seasonal wind blowing through the Greek islands as a result of heat building over Turkey. The heat builds over Italy and the Balearics during the next few days. We're going to see unusually high temperatures during Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's mostly fine across Iberia and into the Canary Islands. But you can see the temperature rise in Italy there up to the mid to high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Well, we have found some peacocks, so we've been speaking to people today, hearing from them how much of a nuisance they say they are. It is a real mix, though, here. Some people saying that actually they're all right, that they're part of the furniture of this village now. You can see this peacock here showing all of its feathers. I'm going to be very honest with you. We have just seen it attempt to mate the peahen that you can see behind it there. And this showing of feathers is part of the thing, what they do to try, part of the mating call here as well, to try and show all of the feathers off and everything like that. And there's a thing that they do train rattling as well. I wonder if Mr. Peacock might talk to us. Mr. Peacock, would you?
Come on, Jack. Come on, Jack. We need you to get involved.
I'm not sure.
This is
GB News, Jack
This is your big David Attenborough moment, Jack.
Any questions to say to the nuisance you might be causing people? Any response?
Although this feels a little bit intimate now. There's a bit of a moment going on. It's all got a bit voyeuristic.
Very happy to talk to us so far this morning, but some residents of Tutbury here have spoken to us this morning. Take a listen to what they've told us about what they think about all these peacocks.
They've been here longer than I have, so I've lived in the house I live in at the top here 47 years. They've been there all that time, because they were from the castle to start with. The people at the castle used to have them, and they're just part of the village.
I hate them. When they do all that damage, it's heartbreaking, you know. Yeah, round them up and take them to a farm or a zoo, where they're supposed to be.
They're like the furniture. They should stay around here. You know, people just need to let them get on with what they are. They're nature's animals, and they deserve to live around here, don't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
They describe being ignored, gaslit, lied to, manipulated, and damaged further by the inability for a trust to simply be honest with them.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting launching another investigation, this time into NHS maternity services after meeting families bereaved by various failings.
That's right. He met parents whose babies had died at hospitals in areas including Nottingham, Leeds, Kent, Shrewsbury, Telford and Morecambe Bay. So let's talk now to the founder and CEO of the Motherhood Group, Sandra Igwe, joins us now. Good morning, Sandra. Good to see you. This is incredibly frustrating for me. I have had 3 children. I used to work in maternity services a bit. I wrote a book about this, and actually I could probably sit him down and tell him, as I'm sure you could as well, over a cup of tea, what is wrong with maternity services. It does not need another protracted, expensive review to come up with protocol and policy which should just be implemented. Sandra, what do you make of it?
Thank you so much for having me here this morning. I think this inquiry actually is very important because it finally names what so many families, individuals have been saying for a very long time. You know, harm, trauma, not being respected, not being listened to, having to constantly, repeatedly, you know, being let down by services that's supposed to help us. And I think that far too many people, especially mothers, have had, you know, to campaign. We've had to campaign over and over again and have to relive our trauma. So this is just another report for us to finally have our voices heard.
But it's been proven time and time again, the evidence is, if you give a woman a known midwife with continuity of care that you reduce perinatal mortality for mother and baby, you decrease postnatal depression, you increase breastfeeding, etc. Don't we just need to implement more midwives with continuity to look after women?
That's definitely one thing we have to implement, is continuity of care. But also the report, or the inquiry actually, finally acknowledges that Black and Asian women are more likely to have worse outcomes. And so because of that, they're going to be launching an anti-racism or anti-discrimination program that finally hopes to tackle inequality. That's a big moment for me and for many groups that are campaigning for better outcomes for Black mothers. But now what really matters is how it's being done. So you're absolutely correct in having that continuity of care about how are we upskilling staff so they know how to take care and how to engage properly with all women, including Black mothers.
OK, all right. Thank you so much. I'm with you on this. Motherhood Group CEO Sandra Egwe there. All the research shows that actually being listened to, and that's why Black maternal mortality is so bad, because there's been kind of that women who are Black are less likely to be listened to.
But you know, but that, I'm sure it's important. That is the 21st government inquiry set up since this lot got into power. That is 2 a month. It's absurd.
Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a grey start out there for most of us. A lot of rain around, but it does tend to ease later. It turns more showery. In some places it will brighten up. Some bright weather there for parts of the southeast and the far north of Scotland first thing. Otherwise extensive cloud, a keen breeze coming from the southwest, and we've got these outbreaks of rain affecting much of Scotland, northwest England, Wales and Northern Ireland. The rain turns to showers by the afternoon, and there will be some brighter interludes, particularly through parts of Wales into the Midlands, East Anglia, and where we get some sunshine. 25 Celsius in the southeast. It's starting to feel more humid again, but staying cool further north. Then we go into Tuesday night, and it's going to stay warm and humid in the south, but cooler across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still some showers around during the evening. They're not going to be particularly heavy. They'll move through reasonably quickly. Northern Ireland just seeing a few spots of rain here and there, but still a lot of cloud in the sky. Likewise for Northern England into North Wales. Here we've got our old weather front that's just lingering and bringing outbreaks of more persistent rain, particularly over western hills. But clear spells there for parts of the Midlands and the southeast. Despite the clear spells, we have got higher humidities in the south, so some mist and murk around coasts of southern and western UK, and we are going to see another relatively muggy night, I think, in places, particularly towards the south, 16, 17 Celsius, fresher further north, 11 to 12 for parts of Scotland. Now, we begin Wednesday with a lot of cloud once again, but still some brightness across the south and southeast. Northeast Scotland as well, seeing some glimmers of sunshine. We keep the cloudy zone through the Midlands and parts of Wales, some dribs and drabs of rain, but actually for many it turns out to be a drier and brighter day compared with Tuesday. Sunny spells and just a few showers in the north, and feeling much warmer, 27, 28 Celsius in the southeast.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists in South Lanarkshire should exercise caution due to surface water affecting driving conditions. Maintenance work continues on the M4 westbound from junction 30 Cardiff Gate to junction 32 Corryton, causing overnight closures from 8 this evening until 6 tomorrow morning. In Hampshire, a traffic collision on the A31 westbound between the M27 and A338 North Road has led to lane closures, with normal conditions anticipated by 12:30 today. And on the trains, there's disruption on East Midlands Railway at Manchester-Oxford Road and a reduced service on the London North Western Railway between Bletchley and Bedford. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 24th of June, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Breaking news, that ceasefire, well, it appears to have broken already just hours after Donald Trump hailed the end to fighting between Israel and Iran. It's been violated by Iran.
Well, the Iranian government have just denied that this ballistic missile came from them. So more mystery about this. Israel's confident that it did come from Iranian soil.
Welfare rebellion, more than, the number is now 108 Labour MPs threatening to defy Sir Keir Starmer in a vote next week to cut disability benefits on Tuesday.
Headache for Sir Keir Starmer, as Andrew says, over 100 MPs try and sink his welfare reforms. The biggest challenge to the PM's authority since a landslide. Here is the bill. It's a huge issue for Sir Keir Starmer. Stay tuned.
So, defence spending. The Prime Minister has apparently approved an extra £40 billion on our military to meet the NATO target of 5% of spending of GDP by 2035. Will that ever happen? And
No.
do you want it to?
They describe being ignored, gaslit, lied to, manipulated, and damaged further by the inability for a trust to simply be honest with them.
That's the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, launching an investigation into NHS maternity services after meeting families bereaved by failings. We want to know your own experience of having a baby on the NHS.
And I think we can all relate to this. The loutish Lime bike riders, friend of the show, Dame Joan Collins, has vented her frustration online about abandoned bikes that you can hire clustered together on a London pavement. Do they drive you mad as well? How do you feel about Lime bikes?
They drive me nuts.
Yeah, me too.
And the people who are on them drive me even nuttier because they're always on the pavement, through the red lights, no respect for road users, and it's like walking on an obstacle course, getting through them.
Doctors now have a phrase, it's called Lime bike leg, and it's people who get on them, and other hire bikes are available, it's not just Lime bikes, and you don't know if they're engineered properly, you don't know if they're ready to break down. So Lime bike leg is broken legs because people are coming off Lime bikes. They're going at
They go too fast.
Really fast. and then coming off them. So be very careful on them. And also, you don't get a helmet with them. I feel quite strongly about bike helmets. You don't get those with them either, do you? Right, get in touch with us this morning, gbnews.com/your say. I'm still getting over the fact that Mark White used to own a karaoke bar in Thailand.
Yeah, and he was the star performer.
If you missed that earlier, it really was an unexpected turn of events here on Britain's Newsroom. That's what we do. All right, Tatiana Sanchez is here with your news.
Bev, thank you. The top stories. The Israeli military says it's identified missiles launched from Iran towards Israel in what appears to be a violation of a ceasefire agreed between the two nations. It says air defence systems are operating to intercept the threat and is telling people to go into shelters and stay there until further notice. Israel's defence minister says Israel will respond forcefully to the violation. Iran, though, has denied the missile came from them. Well, it comes just hours after Donald Trump said a ceasefire between Israel and Iran was in effect, after 12 days of deadly attacks that raised fears of a wider conflict in the Middle East. Israel says it agreed to the ceasefire after eliminating the Iranian nuclear threat. Iran earlier said it would only stop its attacks if Israel did the same. Hours before the ceasefire had come into effect, Israel and Iran continued launching deadly attacks with at least 4 people killed in Israel. Meanwhile, the UK has lifted advice for its citizens to shelter in places in Qatar after Iran launched a retaliatory attack on a US military base there. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel spoke to GB News ahead of the reported ceasefire violation.
Welcome the ceasefire, but you've just asked the most important question. Will it hold? And the onus has to be now on Iran to stop firing missiles and to actually come to the table. We don't know if it will hold. It's only been announced in the last few hours. And of course, we want all parties to come to the table in the right way, in the proper way, as President Trump has outlined. And we all want to see peace in this part of the Middle East.
Leaders from NATO are gathering in the Netherlands today, with the Prime Minister and President Trump both attending. At the summit, Sir Keir Starmer is due to announce an increase in defence spending to 5% of GDP, but not until 2035, to meet an era of radical uncertainty, he says, but without promising any additional cash. 32 member countries, including the UK, are expected to agree to the 5% goal, with 3.5% to go on core defence and the remaining 1.5% on defence-related areas such as resilience and security. Downing Street has argued measures on energy and tackling smuggling gangs could be classified as security spending. The government's intention to increase defence spending to 5% of GDP by 2035 has been branded as hollow and unfunded by Reform UK, with the party's deputy leader Richard Tice questioning how the money will be spent, calling the measures too little too late. Alongside the spending commitment, the government published its national security strategy, which said the UK needed to be more competitive and robust in science, education, trade and technology. It's also sought to stress investment in defence would be felt directly in the pockets of working people, pointing to new jobs that would also be created. The summit will be Mark Rutte's first as the Secretary-General of NATO. Speaking at a press conference yesterday, the former Dutch Prime Minister said the 5% spending commitment was a quantum leap that's ambitious, historic and fundamental to securing our future. Elsewhere, new figures show that grocery prices are now 4.7% more expensive than a year ago as supermarket inflation hit its highest level since last March. The figure's up from 4.1% last month, which was a rise from 3.8% in April, according to the data from Kantar. Price rises didn't stop British consumers from making 490 million trips to the supermarkets over the last month, averaging almost 17 per household, and the highest recorded by Kantar since March in 2020. Amazon says it will invest £40 billion in the UK over the next 3 years as it creates thousands of jobs and opens 4 new warehouses. The online shopping giant will build 2 huge fulfilment centres in the East Midlands, which it expects to open in 2027. The exact locations are still to be revealed. 2 others in Hull and Northampton were previously announced and are set to be finished this year and next, respectively, with 2,000 jobs expected at each site. And 2 new buildings will also go up at its corporate headquarters in East London. Amazon's already one of the country's biggest private employers, with around 75,000 staff. In other news, women who have delayed coming forward for cervical screening will be offered to test to be taken at home. The NHS England has announced the DIY test kits will be available from January. The test is for HPV, which causes most cervical cancers, and women between the ages of 25 and 64 are offered it every few years. The Department for Health and Social Care in England said the scheme would tackle deeply entrenched barriers that keep women away from cervical screening. Just 68% of women currently take up the offer. And the winning design for the National Memorial for Queen Elizabeth II will also feature her husband, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, alongside a traditional statue of the late Queen. Lord Norman Foster's design team has been announced as the winner in the competition for a memorial to honour Britain's longest reigning monarch, to be built in St James's Park in central London. And those are the latest headlines for now. More at 10:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
GB News, Andrew and Bev, the time is now 10:08. We've got a really interesting guest coming into the studio, haven't we?
We have got a really interesting guest. I didn't remember this story, but you remembered it well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
This was a 1994 RAF Chinook helicopter crash on the Mull of Kintyre that contained 29 military personnel. And the families are fighting to have documents released to say what happened, because the government insisted that the documents were sealed for 100 years.
Which is very odd, because I think there were people in military intelligence on board that helicopter. But it's interesting, isn't it? 29 people were killed in that helicopter crash. Yesterday we talked here in GB News on this programme about the inquiry that's being launched into the murder by the IRA of 28, or was it 29 people in Omar in 1998. Well, we know what happened there. The IRA blew them to smithereens. What we don't know is what went wrong with that helicopter and why the files have been shut for 100 years.
So we've got Andy Tobias, whose father was killed in that, and he was 8 years old at the time, and they're still fighting for justice. So don't miss that. It'll be a very interesting interview. Valerie in Kent says, I love Mark White. There's a lot of love for Mark White in the inbox this morning. I think the revelation about your karaoke bar in Thailand has...
What was the name of it?
It was called the Banana Boat.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
I'm
not surprised.
I inherited the name. It wasn't my choice.
Right. Oh, no, some of them in relation to you. We can't read them out, I'm afraid.
No.
You can imagine what they're saying.
Best not to.
Peter says, good morning, Peter. Donald Trump has played a blinder. He's got Starmer sidelined as well, who will have to look elsewhere for his Nobel Prize, because, of course, the theory being that this is going to be Trump's Peace Prize coming, if he can pull this off. Bob says they're going on about Netanyahu telling the world Iran could go nuclear soon, and the Liberals trying to pour cold water on it. Yet Zelensky only has to say Putin wants to take over the world. And they all hide under their beds after handing over billions of our taxpayers' money, of course. And this is, of course, the mystery that we said was in London yesterday.
You saw the King, you saw the Prime Minister, you saw the Speaker of the House of Commons. 60 months ago when he was in Parliament, he was fated. He spoke to Parliament. He could move nowhere. He was a great hero. How time moves quickly.
But isn't it weird, though? I mean, is that our fault? Is that the media? Because it was like COVID was this thing, and then Russia bombed Ukraine, COVID disappeared. And then everyone's obsessed with Ukraine, and then October the 7th kicks off, and then everyone moves on again.
I think it's fatigue. People have moved on from it. It's still going on vaguely somewhere in the
feels a bit theatrical.
But we shouldn't forget, it's costing every taxpayer watching this programme billions of pounds every year.
What, Ukraine?
Yeah.
Sean says, good morning, Mark White is a great journalist. He has his finger on the pulse and he tells it like it is. It's great that he's at GB News. We agree with you, Sean.
And he's just agreed that he's going to cook us a nice Thai meal at some point, because he's very good at that.
Well, I can do a Thai meal called Lab Gai, which is great.
Sounds great.
Yeah, minced chicken or beef or pork.
Yeah.
With, all of the above.
And then we want, but then you've
lots of chilli in there.
But then you've got to perform your routine from your karaoke bar.
Gentlemen, if I can interrupt this cooking hour on Britain's Newsroom, Pat says Iran is playing games with Trump, exactly like Putin has. Dorinda, good morning, Dorinda, says Iran said last night that they knew nothing about a ceasefire. Israel, I can't rid of that, sorry. Something's just popped up on my screen. Have you noticed how the internet's quite difficult to work these days? So many adverts, pop-ups. Can you agree to this?
That's why I leave it to you.
And Isabel says, I think Andrew and Bev should be up for an award. It's one of the best shows on GB News.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Thank you,
but we weren't nominated.
No, no, maybe next time. Because
we weren't nominated last year either.
No.
We're not bitter. We're not bitter at all.
Listen, you two, you're my favourite. The two.
Or the year before, but we are wishing Breakfast the very best of luck, and we voted for them.
At the Trick Awards today, this is the Television and Radio Industries Club Awards, at lunchtime and this afternoon. I'm going to be there. You're not going, are you?
I'm busy.
And Charlie Peters is up for an award as well because of the remarkable reporting that he's done this year. So we very much wish GB News luck for the GB News family all afternoon.
Now, let's talk to Mark White about something other than Thai food, because the Israeli military said missiles launched from Iran have caused the violation of the ceasefire that only kicks in at 5 o'clock.
But then the Israeli Defence Minister has said he's instructed military to respond forcefully to the violation. But are we right, Mark, in saying that Iran are now saying it wasn't us, we didn't bomb you?
Who did then?
Yeah, various regime sources, and now the Chief of the General Staff, the head of the military in Iran, has come out and said that we didn't launch a missile towards Israel. Now, Israel are adamant that they traced the launch and it came from Iranian soil. Perhaps it's a rogue general. You never know in these situations. But certainly at the upper levels of government now in Tehran, they are completely denying that they launched this missile. I don't think that is going to stop Israel responding. Already, the Defence Minister, Israel Katz, has said that he has instructed the IDF to strike and to strike hard at regime targets in the capital, Tehran. And, of course, the usual sort of to and fro in terms of rhetoric. We've got Iran saying, if you strike us, we are going to strike back even harder. So let's just hope we don't go back down into this spiral after it was looking so promising just a few hours ago, after Donald Trump, it seems, had managed to get both sides to agree to this ceasefire. They were both on board. Netanyahu put out very positive messages. The Iranian government, well, they put out the usual, we have managed to sort of buckle and bend the great Satan and alike to our will, and we will agree to end our hostilities at the moment. But
Mark, you know better than most that great phrase, one of the first casualties of war is truth. So who's telling the truth here?
Well, I think there is no doubt that this missile has come from Iran, because I was following the alerts. There's a sort of established alert system that they have in Israel now to alert their population, and that was coming out before any of this, saying missile a missile has been launched from Iran. They're tracking its trajectory.
They get into their shelters.
Yeah, it's likely that there will be alerts soon, and then they're saying it'll be alerts in northern Israel. So they're tracking it right over. So they're in no doubt at all that it's come from Iran. As to say, the big question is whether this has been sanctioned from the highest levels of the Iranian government, or whether someone's gone rogue here.
Fascinating.
Thank you, Mark. Right, so Keir Starmer is facing another headache as he faces what's being described as a mega rebellion. Is a mega rebellion an official political statement?
Not by me. I didn't write that.
A significant rebellion of more than 100 MPs over welfare cuts.
This came last week. A government whip's job is to get MPs to vote for government legislation. Vicky Foxcroft resigned as a government whip because she said in all honesty, couldn't do it. She is part now of that revolt.
That's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah.
For a whip to step down to say, I can't get this many people to do what the government wants them to do.
And she said unconsciously she couldn't bring herself to do it.
Because it was
because she couldn't believe support it, and she's now joined the revolt. It also includes the Transport Secretary Lou Hague, who was fired by the Prime Minister. It doesn't take them long to get their own back, does it?
No, it
and
doesn't.
13 chairmen and women of select committees that look at government legislation. These are key people at Parliament, and they're big hitters, and it's going to be very difficult for the whips to twist their arms to support the government.
Let's see what Chris Hope thinks. GBNews' political editor is at Westminster this morning. We wanted you to be here in the studio with us, Chris, but it's still nice to see you.
Ask him if he used to own a karaoke bar anywhere.
Down the line. We wanted to know if you had any interest in karaoke bars. But listen, how problematic is this going to be for Keir Starmer? That's a lot of MPs rebelling.
It really is, and I'll be with you next time, I promise. Look, here is the document here. This is an amendment to the Universal Credit and Personal Independent Payment Bill. 108 MPs have signed it. Andrew's right, 13 Select Committee chairs. These are the soft left, not the hard left, the soft left. A real problem here. The government's majority being 156, just 78 required to overturn a vote. They've got a third more than that. This vote is next Tuesday. If this goes ahead, it would kill the bill. This is a dramatic, embarrassing moment for a Prime Minister who won that landslide majority barely a year ago. A real problem. These rebels here, according to this amendment they signed last night, they want a formal consultation with disabled people. They want the OBR, the Treasury's forecasters, to publish an analysis of the employment impact of these reforms being pushed forward. And they want more funding to be available, not until the end of the decade. What they're concerned about is that it means that fewer people will qualify for personal independent payments, and not enough money will be brought forward to help them get back to work. The headache, though, is that these plans are put forward by the government to save £5 billion from the welfare bill to fill a black hole caused in part by a slowing economy. Some would say caused in part by some of the measures brought in by this government since October's budget. An absolute nightmare for the Prime Minister. He's on his way now to NATO, and we'll be hearing from him later.
All right, that's Chris Hope, our political editor at Westminster, on the latest. There'll be a lot of arm twisting going on behind the scenes now, because it would be unprecedented for a government with a majority of 170-odd to lose a flagship bill before they've even clocked up 1 year in office.
But it goes to the heart of who they are. It goes to the heart of, if you can't get a welfare bill through under a Labour government for whom welfare was supposed to be very important, who are they? That's the question it begs.
And of course the Conservatives will vote against it because they're in opposition. So will Reform. So will the SNP. But it'd be interesting if they're now trying to do deals with opposition MPs to get them on side. Anyway, he's got a big problem on his hands.
Right, you wouldn't have a problem on your hands if you had £54,321 cash in your bank account, because it could be yours. Here is Hayley Sparks with all the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Now, next. Why are droves of millionaires leaving Britain? And what does it mean for you? Are you leaving, Andrew?
No, I'm not leaving, but I tell you what, we should worry, because they are leaving at the rate of more than one every 45 minutes, and they create wealth and they create jobs, and that's what we need. And it's the Labour government's fault, of course. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
and you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
She left office 35 years ago, which seems incredible.
God, that makes me feel really old. I remember being at school when she was deposed.
Oh, that makes me feel really old, because I was way beyond school.
Well, I was 47 yesterday, so...
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. Carry on.
Well, so there are three generations that have grown up that weren't alive when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. And there are so many myths that have built up about her that... and part of the reason I wrote it was because my personal trainer, I broke my hip 2 years ago.
Yes.
So I had to get a personal trainer to the rehab. And he's 25, or was then. And when he found out what I did for a living, he said, well, Margaret Thatcher, I've heard of her, but who was she? What did she do? He didn't even know she'd been Prime Minister. And I was like slightly horrified by this. So this is really aimed at those generations. You can't tell every aspect of her life in a book that size, but it really is an introduction to her. And the first sentence says, if you've read Charles Moore's 3-volume biography of her, please stop here. This book is not for you.
No.
So it covers most of the important things.
And by the way, maybe that revelation by your PT does ask questions about the national curriculum and history teaching. They should do a section, shouldn't they, on our first female Prime Minister, arguably. But what's the challenge then when you're writing somebody's life up? I mean, and what a life she led.
Well, I found out that it's much more difficult to write a short book than a long book, because you really do have to be concise. I was told I had 30,000 words. I said, well, that's a pamphlet, not a book. So I stretched it to 45,000. But normally a biography would be 120, 150,000 words. So it really was quite a challenge to condense it all. And what do you leave out? I mean, I wasn't going to do a chapter on Northern Ireland, but as I was writing it, I thought, no, you can't do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. You're a long way away there, Andrew. Scooch over. With Andrew and Bev. Now, we are joined in the studio by Nigel Nelson and Piers Pottinger. Morning, gentlemen. Right, do we want to start with the number of millionaires that are fleeing the UK, and why does it matter, Nigel?
Well, it obviously matters if they take their wealth with them. However, we ought to be cautious about these figures. We keep getting estimates of the numbers of non-DOMs who are meant to be leaving. We won't actually know the figure until the end of this year. So there are 74,000 non-DOMs in Britain at the moment. The Treasury come up with an estimate by the end of the year about how many have left, and that'll be the accurate one. So far, these are surveys, estimates. What it says, the latest one is about 16,000 are leaving. What it does mean that 8 in 10 are staying. So then you come on to Nigel Farage's idea about let's give them a one-off 250 grand Britannia card so they don't have to pay any tax. Well, that's a bit of a nonsense policy anyway.
They'll pay different tax, not necessarily no tax.
Well, they'll pay tax in Britain. What it'll mean is they won't, under the current system, they pay tax on their foreign earnings. They won't do that. There's a weird bit in Nigel's policy document which says that this 250 grand they pay up front will mean they won't pay any inheritance tax. Well, I thought that the reform were going to scrap inheritance tax anyway. So why these rich people will be handing over £250,000 for something that's going to happen anyway is a bit bizarre.
Because we know that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, Rachel from Accounts, is talking about reforming rowing back on her non-dom.
Yeah, another U-turn.
Another U-turn, because so many are leaving. So we thought that there was talk of one leaving every 45 minutes. This new survey suggests the number have doubled. It will have doubled this year to last year.
And actually, I mean, when they leave, they do tend to take their money with them.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, they leave because they don't want to pay the tax. So what Rachel Reeves is discovering is she's driving the wealth out of the country. But these wealthy people, it's not just their own money, they are wealth creators. And they create more wealth, and without them, we are really suffering. There's one millionaire I'd like to see leave the country, and that, of course, is Keir Starmer. And with the way things are in his own party, he can't even control that, as we're seeing with the welfare reform bill. I mean, he's in really big trouble. But as indeed is Rachel Reeves, because everything she's done, it's coming back to bite her now, and the government is doing U-turns. It's digging itself deeper and deeper into holes. I mean, this defence thing today that Starmer has announced at NATO is just pie in the sky. And when he's actually stretching the term defence spending to include rural broadband improvements.
How is that defence
And that is apparently strengthening our defence.
Intelligence and
I mean,
security.
this is... And at the same time as that, they're about to approve a massive new Chinese embassy, brilliantly stationed over the major cables in the City of London, with the ability to spy and cause havoc over the financial network, not just of this country, but of Europe. And again, he was told by both the Americans and the Dutch even not to go ahead with this embassy. He's obviously approved it when they did the trade meeting a few months ago. And it's going to be announced by Angela Rayner. It's got 200 bedrooms. It's not an embassy. It's a massive compound full of spies. I mean, every single thing Starmer is doing now is coming back to bite him. The one word he dare not use at the moment is growth, because there is none. Unemployment is going up. Our defence spending is actually not going up. He's facing his own party a massive rebellion. The man is... I mean, he really is the worst Prime Minister of our time.
And Nigel, this is coming up. Next week is the first anniversary of your lot winning this glorious victory with a huge majority, albeit only on 34% of the vote, because it was a massive vote against the Tories rather than a massive endorsement of Starmer.
Strange system we have here.
Could you conceive that in the week of the first anniversary of Labour finally getting back in power, he'd be teetering on the edge, potentially, of what could almost be a terminal blow to his authority if this welfare bill is defeated? Because they're not voting just to say, we want you to spend a bit less on this or a bit more here. They want to stop the whole thing in its tracks.
Yeah, I mean, what the amendment that the 108 MPs have signed at the moment is for a pause.
Yeah.
So that, in a sense, gets them off the hook. I mean, what they want to do is look at welfare reform, but do everything in the right order. So what you should be doing is looking at how to reform welfare rather than making this a cost-cutting exercise. So you basically find out why people aren't working. And there could be a whole load of reasons. As far as to your question about Keir Starmer, should the vote go ahead? Should he lose it? Traditionally, as you and I both know, a Prime Minister would end up facing a no-confidence vote. Of course, he would win that with his huge majority of MPs. So I don't think there's any great danger in the vote.
How has he misjudged his own party so badly to have 108 MPs now?
But he's also got the real problem is that Rachel Reeves, who created this in her budget, these welfare proposed cuts, I mean, again, it shows she hasn't thought it through. And they don't think anything through properly, and everything they try and do comes back to bite them. They either have to give in and U-turn, which they keep doing at the moment, or they dig their heels in and just make the situation worse. I mean, the NHS isn't getting any better. We've got the problem with defence, the problem with welfare, no growth. I mean, the country is in a dire state.
Don't forget the migrants crossing, so we're going to smash.
Well, yeah, well, we're
Remember
getting
how easy that was going to be.
Thousands and thousands more people coming in by the week, and we've got to accommodate them, pay for them, give them free mobile phones. They'll soon be getting Harrods gift cards.
The Sun has on its front page today, within days they're working for Deliveroo, these illegal migrants.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
No wonder Deliveroo get my deliveries wrong so often.
Long way off the welfare problem, but still.
Yeah.
Well, yes, whether...
Well, no, because they add to the welfare bill, these migrants.
Yeah, they're getting welfare.
They're getting benefits.
Well, they're not getting benefits. No, they don't.
They get a handout.
They get a handout, £9.
Well, that's benefit. That's a benefit.
Well, it's not.
Oh,
they're
come
getting
on, Nigel,
benefit.
they get much more than that.
They get £45 if they're looking after themselves. They get £9 if they're in a hotel for the week.
And who pays for the hotel?
Well, obviously we do.
That's benefit.
There we are.
That's benefit.
That is a benefit. I think that they're not actually drawing benefits.
Living in a hotel free of charge is quite a large benefit, for goodness sake. I mean, these are not...
Where do you want to put them, then?
Well, we don't want them here at all.
While the wealth appreciate that, but no one's come up with a way of actually stopping them coming here.
They did. It was called Rwanda.
While the wealth creators are leaving, the people who are actually sponging off us are coming in.
And on that bombshell, we need to move on. Nigel, Piers, thank you so much. It's time for the 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you. The headlines at 10:30. The Israeli military says it's identified missiles launched from Iran towards Israel in what appears to be a violation of a ceasefire agreed between the two nations. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel spoke to GB News ahead of that reported violation.
Will it hold? And the onus has to be now on Iran to stop firing missiles and to actually come to the table.
Keir Starmer is due to announce an increase in defence spending to 5% of GDP, but not until 2035 to beat an era of radical uncertainty, he says. Meanwhile, the government published its national security strategy, which said the UK needed to be more competitive and robust in science, education, trade and technology. New figures show that grocery prices are now 4.7% more expensive than a year ago as supermarket inflation hits its highest level since last March. And Amazon says it'll invest £40 billion in the UK over the next 3 years as it creates thousands of jobs and opens 4 new warehouses. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Up next, do you have any fanciful pledges, things you'd like to buy by 2035, Andrew? New house?
No, I thought I'd get a new army. I mean, that's what the Prime Minister's used
More
to
hair
get.
gel, maybe?
I don't wear hair gel.
Oh. Cardboard
have a car.
cutout of your favourite co-presenter to go next to Margaret
I could
Thatcher
get
one?
another cardboard cutout of Margaret Thatcher and another one of Jane Collins. Love them both.
Do you know what? You're right. You could. I'm not sure I'd make a perfect triumvirate with those two. Tableau in your drawing room. Right, listen. We are getting in touch with us this morning. Let us know what if you could just spend a load of money on something by 2035. This is what Keir Starmer's talking about doing with our military
He's
budget.
talking through his
Let us know.
proverbial.
He is. Right, we are not. gbnews.com/your say. Get in touch. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a grey start out there for most of us. A lot of rain around, but it does tend to ease later. It turns more showery. In some places it will brighten up. Some bright weather there for parts of the southeast and the far north of Scotland first thing. Otherwise extensive cloud, a keen breeze coming from the southwest, and we've got these outbreaks of rain affecting much of Scotland, northwest England, Wales and Northern Ireland. The rain turns to showers by the afternoon and there will be some brighter interludes, particularly through parts of Wales into the Midlands, East Anglia, and where we get some sunshine. 25 Celsius in the southeast. It's starting to feel more humid again, but staying cool further north. Then we go into Tuesday night and it's going to stay warm and humid in the south, but cooler across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still some showers around during the evening. They're not going to be particularly heavy. They'll move through reasonably quickly. Northern Ireland just seeing a few spots of rain here and there, but still a lot of cloud in the sky. Likewise for Northern England into North Wales. Here we've got our old weather front that's just lingering and bringing outbreaks of more persistent rain, particularly over western hills. But clear spells there for parts of the Midlands and the southeast. Despite the clear spells, we have got higher humidities in the south, so some mist and murk around coasts of southern and western UK, and we are going to see another relatively muggy night, I think, in places, particularly towards the south, 16, 17 Celsius, fresher further north, 11 to 12 for parts of Scotland. Now, we begin Wednesday with a lot of cloud once again, but still some brightness across the south and southeast. Northeast Scotland as well, seeing some glimmers of sunshine. We keep the cloudy zone through the Midlands and parts of Wales, some dribs and drabs of rain, but actually for many it turns out to be a drier and brighter day compared with Tuesday. Sunny spells and just a few showers in the north, and feeling much warmer, 27, 28 Celsius in the southeast.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M8 westbound junction 6A on-slip is closed for planned roadworks. Road users should follow the signed diversion route. On the M1 southbound, entry at junction 41 remains obstructed due to a broken down vehicle. Traffic on the M61 southbound between junction 4 and junction 3 near Bolton faces delays of about 10 minutes. In Derbyshire, congestion on the M1 southbound between junction 29A and junction 28 causes 30-minute delays. And on the trains, London North Western Railway has a reduced service between Bletchley and Bedford, while Southern experiences minor delays between Lewes and Brighton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Time is 10:30. That was Beverly Turner just creeping back into her seat. She was going off to try and work out the air conditioning. Why have we got air conditioning on anyway? It's not. The heat wave's over.
You know, ladies, you want a job doing properly. You know what they say, find a busy woman to get the job doing. The air conditioning is very cold in here this morning. If you caught me yawning a little bit in the last section, it wasn't because I'm really tired, I am a bit, but it's also because I think I'm slipping into a sort of hypothermic coma because it's so cold in here. So if you see me slumped on the desk, that's why. Right, moving on. Leaders from NATO are gathering in the Netherlands today with the Prime Minister and Donald Trump both in attendance.
Of course, Keir Starmer wouldn't want to pass up. That's not what you think I said.
Try that again, Andrew.
Pass up on a trip to the Netherlands. Because he's now... Do you know how many times he's been abroad since he's been Prime Minister?
Go on.
This is his 26th trip abroad since he became Prime Minister.
He's not even been there a year yet.
No, it's a year on Friday.
That's right. So he's going to approve an increase in defence spending to 5%.
No, he's not.
Well, what he's going to do is he's going to stand there with all his mates and he's going to say,
look at
my
me.
Biceps are as big as yours.
That's
I
right.
used biceps. I could have come up with something else there. Mine's bigger than yours, and we're going to spend... It's going to be big on the global stage because that's what I want to be. Grr.
Yeah. I was just thinking about if you want something done. But Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. That's what she said.
I concur. Right, former British Army spokesman Major Mike Shearer joins us now. Good morning, Mike. Thank you for joining us. So, is it even plausible that Keir Starmer will get anywhere near spending 5%, or will this country 5% of GDP on arms by 2035 on our defence? Because he's going to be nowhere near number 10 by then anyway. So, isn't it just hot air?
I mean, this is very, very serious. And sadly, it is hot air. Keir Starmer, with his smoke and mirrors, sleight of hand, trying to link it into the National Resilience Strategy, which we'll come back to in a minute, he's leaving it for another Prime Minister, making promises for other governments. Look, the chat in Whitehall has been, up until now, the people are only prepared to spend 2.5% of GDP on the military. Now, that is a nonsense. Conventional military and political wisdom right now suggests that we're going to be at war with Russia, NATO, in 3 to 4 years' time. Our SDR, Strategic Defence Review, that came out a week or so ago, it's not going to be fully operational until 9 years' time. So what are we to do? Are we to write to Putin and ask him if he wouldn't mind holding off for a few years?
Yeah, because
there needs to be a serious national conversation in this country about how fragile the peace and our freedoms are. Look, back in 1960, the defense spend of GDP was 7% because those people had just come out of 2 world wars and they knew they had to spend the money to keep themselves safe. The National Resilience Strategy that I spoke about a moment ago, it aims to improve our ability to prepare for, respond to, and recover from various crises and emergencies. It's all about risk assessment and building into that risk assessment across all sectors. But each sector, very importantly, each sector must pay its own way.
Mike, also, if you dig deep into those figures, if people think 2.5% of GDP or 2.7%, oh, good, that's lots more soldiers, lots more tanks, lots more planes. A lot of that money doesn't go on that at all. Some of it, for instance, is to maintain our independent nuclear deterrent. There's also boring things like, but very important, pensions. All gets lumped in there.
Yes. And of course, military pensions, in my opinion, should be paid for out of the work in pensions department. Right. I think that NATO really need to have an open source look at each other within the boundaries of operational security to see where the money is. Because hiding it, just as you've suggested, it's a nonsense and quite frankly dangerous. You either spend the money now or you spend much more money later along with it then becomes blood and treasure, not just treasure.
Mike, can we ask you, while we've got you as a former British Army spokesperson, what do you make of events out in the Middle East? Has Trump averted potential World War III now? It feels a little safer this morning.
Look, first of all, World War III was never coming from Iran. And my hope is that Trump doesn't fold too early. Just as Israel, over the years, over the decades, have got very close to solving their own problems, the Americans often come in and put a hand on them and stop them. Netanyahu has been quite clear. While Donald Trump dances around the idea, there really needs to be regime change in this country of Iran, and to allow the good people of Persia get on with their lives. I hope that there's more to come in this. I don't want to sound too hawkish, but I think Israel have nearly completed the deal here, and we mustn't stop them.
Mike, I hear what you say about regime change just finally, but remember when Britain and France joined forces in Libya and Gaddafi, the terrible despot Gaddafi, was deposed. Libya's a much bigger basket case now since Gaddafi was toppled, and it's also led to a massive increase in migration in that part of Africa. So we have to be careful what we wish for if we get rid of the mullahs.
Well, you are, of course, right, but I would like to think that we have learned from that. There must not be a void left. You're absolutely right about that. You don't want to replace one dictator for another. So I would like to think that both Israel and the United States know how they're going to proceed with this if it does go to regime change.
And Mike, I'm rather springing this on you, but I know that our next guest is on. I'm just interested again in your opinion on this. We've got Andy Tobias coming in. He is one of the sons of the Chinook helicopter disaster, which went down, killing 29 service people. I'm sure you're familiar with that. They're still looking for answers. Do you think they should be allowed to find out what happened in that case?
Yes, I do. I think when soldiers, sailors, and airmen are lost, we want to know what has gone on. Unless there is any extraordinary sensitive operational security reason that would cause more harm going forward, then everything should be exposed to the families.
Yeah, it's hard to know what that could have been, given that this happened in 1997 now, so many years later. 94, sorry.
Yeah.
Given it happened in 94, it's hard to know what that could be now in 2025.
That's your dog. Yeah. Is that your dog joining in the conversation?
That is Little Pickle. I think there's probably a postman on his way.
Quite right, too. You've got your dog to protect you. Great to talk to you. That's former Army spokesman Major Mike Shearer.
We'll let him go and get the door.
Exactly. Still ahead.
We're going to be joined, as I just said then, by Andy Tobias. Now, as we said, he's the Chinook Justice Campaign representative. So the families are still looking for answers after 29 people were killed in a helicopter tragedy on the Isle of Mull. Was it? Isle of Kintyre. Mull of Kintyre,
I think.
Mull of Kintyre, back in 1994. We're going to be talking to him in the studio in just a moment. First of all, though.
We've got that elusive holiday sun. Here it is.
I forecast a...
Hungry and so cold.
We got this. You haven't got that lunch till 3 o'clock.
If you or someone you know is heading further afield over the next few days, you can expect widespread sunshine across the Mediterranean, and it's going to be breezy for Greece. The usual seasonal wind blowing through the Greek islands as a result of heat building over Turkey. The heat builds over Italy and the Balearics during the next few days. We're going to see unusually high temperatures during Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's mostly fine across Iberia and into the Canary Islands, but you can see the temperature rise in Italy there up to the mid to high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say. Because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel. Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
So he's on another trip abroad. His air miles account must be booming. Air miles care as opposed to Free trip Kia, free Kia. What all things are called?
Yep.
Kia.
He takes any opportunity of trip abroad, doesn't he?
Let's just ask you quickly. You have to choose now between Davos or Westminster.
Davos.
Why?
Because Westminster is too constrained.
And hasn't he proven that to be the case?
You just can't stand it. That's our Prime Minister.
He's flying to the Netherlands as we speak to go to another NATO summit. Since coming into power last July, he has travelled to 20 countries.
But he's been on 26 trips abroad.
Shall we speak to former Labour spokesperson James Mathewson and political commentator Suzanne Evans? Suzanne, let me come to you. Do you share our befuddlement and bafflement, actually, that there is so much that needs dealing with here in this country? And he's always on a plane going off to glad hand everybody on the global stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Something, of course, he criticised Boris Johnson for doing very roundly when he was in opposition to his government. That Davos clip that you've just played, I think we should play that every night on the telly in the same way we used to play the national anthem, just to remind everybody just how little our current Prime Minister seems to disrespect one of the oldest and most respected parliaments in the world, ours, respected by everybody, it seems, except him. He's missing PMQs. He hasn't given us an update on the G7 or the Iran bombing, not in any significant way to Parliament. I mean, this is just simply disrespectful. I think we all accept that the Prime Minister has to go on overseas trips. That is an inevitable part of being a Prime Minister on a global stage. Of course, we recognise that. But this is just incredible, really. 2 foreign trips on average every month. And he set the tone right from the beginning of his premiership. In the first 5 months, he'd taken nearly 5 weeks away from Parliament on global trips overseas. It's also rank hypocrisy. Here we have a Prime Minister who is obsessed with net zero, who's punishing our pockets as taxpayers and energy bill payers by keeping these net zero tariffs and taxes. And yet here he is. He's run up since his time as Prime Minister, I gather, the equivalent carbon footprint of driving 480 times around the equator.
James, sorry to interrupt you, Sue. Sorry, Suzanne. James, you've got 60 seconds to tell us the evidence for the brilliance of these trips. What are the benefits for us?
Wow, OK, yeah, what a challenge. I mean, the thing for me is, look, Keir Starmer has many flaws and many issues that I take him up on regularly, from the genocide in Israel that he's not condemning, from, the benefits cuts that he's pushing through Parliament. However, one things I will not criticise him about is trying to repair our relationship with other countries and trying to represent Britain on the world stage, because unfortunately our country has crept backwards and backwards and backwards over the past 15 years with regard to its relationship with other countries, from things like Brexit, from question, all sorts of kind of alliances and relationships we thought were healthy beforehand. He's repairing those. He's trying to build them back up. And I don't criticise him for doing so, because I think it's important that the Prime Minister takes a lead role in these things. When he says Davos or Westminster, what can you get out of being in Westminster as Prime Minister? You've got a cabinet who are there. You've got backbench MPs who are there. They're all meant to be doing their job there. And if they are properly, the Prime Minister should be free to go and drum up investment in our country.
James and Suzanne, I'm sorry it was so...
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Bit of a mixed bag today, fairly cloudy, some rain in places and still quite breezy, but parts of the southeast in particular seeing some warm sunshine. Here's the bigger picture. Low pressure sitting to the north. This tangle of weather fronts has been edging its way in across the country. This cold front will bring some rain to southern Scotland and Northern Ireland around the middle of the day, but as that clears away, it should turn drier here later on. Staying fairly dull and damp over the Pennines. A little bit of rain at times getting into parts of Yorkshire too. Much of the south looking dry, and parts of East Wales, the Midlands, towards East Anglia, seeing some warm but humid sunshine. Temperatures in this zone getting up to 25, 26 degrees as possible. Through the evening time, we'll continue to see a little bit of that rain tracking south into northern England. Always showers coming into western parts of Scotland. Probably not too many getting into the east coast. Staying largely fine here and turning a bit drier and brighter through the afternoon and evening through the central belt and across across Northern Ireland, staying mostly cloudy, but the rain should start to ease. We'll keep some outbreaks of rain going over northern England, parts of West Wales, but much of Wales, central and southern England having a fine evening. Still quite breezy, however. That breeze will continue to ease down overnight, and the rain will continue to trickle its way southwards. Parts of Wales having a damp night, some patchy rain still over northern England, maybe heading into the Midlands, and some scattered showers in western Scotland. But many eastern areas having a dry night for sure. Temperatures holding up in double figures, holding up in the mid-teens across a good part of England and Wales. So quite a warm, humid feel here again tomorrow. Rain and drizzle at times in South Wales, maybe affecting parts of the West Midlands. But for many, I suspect it'll be a dry day tomorrow and a better chance of seeing some sunny spells, especially for North Wales. Northern England looking a lot brighter too. The odd shower in western Scotland. And it's really quite warm and humid, and the chance of some thunderstorms coming up to the south later tomorrow.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
It is 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 24th of June, live across the United Kingdom, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So breaking news this morning, just hours after American President Donald Trump confirmed an end to the fighting between Israel and Iran. It appears that the ceasefire may have already been violated.
Well, Iran is denying that it ever fired a ballistic missile at Israel this morning. However, the Israeli Defense Minister has already given approval for strikes on Tehran.
And a massive welfare rebellion. Up to 108 MPs are threatening to defy Sir Keir Starmer, that's Labour MPs, over his plans to cut certain disability benefits in the welfare reform bill next week.
The Prime Minister is going to approve an extra £40 billion on military spending to meet NATO's target of 5%. He's going to be spending it in 2035, apparently. And where does he think that cash is going to come from?
We love this. Line bite louts. Our great friend Dame Joan Collins, she always listens to this show and watches it, has vented her frustration at the abandoned hire bites clustered together on London's pavements. Do you have the same problem wherever you're living?
And how do you feel about a mobile banking bus? Well, Hull has just 4 bank branches per 100,000 people, but help has rolled into town this morning.
We're here in Hull with the banking bus, and it comes as 500 branches, bank branches, will close in Yorkshire and Humber this year alone.
I hate the demise of the high street bank.
So do I.
I think it really affects the elderly, it affects children. You know, you want to introduce them to a bank account, take them in. I'm sure that is some sort of solution, but I'm not sure it's the solution.
And we'll talk about this a little more, but that particular bus that's going around towns and villages, banks are covered by a guarantee, so that if a bank goes under, you are covered up to £85,000. That bank is not covered by that guarantee at all. And also, if you are an older person like me who doesn't want to have a mobile phone app or get to online banking, you can only do it with a mobile phone app. So it's not the panacea, I'm afraid.
No, Anna Riley will be there asking the owner or the person that's running that bus this morning to challenge them, Andrew, with what you've just said. It just feels like times are moving very quickly. If you're not keeping up with technology, it can be so difficult even just to access your own money. GBNews.com/short say. Let's get in touch this morning. First, though, Tatiana Sanchez with your news.
Thank you. The top stories. The Israeli military says it's identified missiles launched from Iran towards Israel in what appears to be a violation of a ceasefire agreed between the two nations. It says air defence systems are operating to intercept the threat and is telling people to go into shelters and stay there until further notice. Israel's defence minister says Israel will respond forcefully to that violation. Iran, though, has denied the missile came from them. Well, it comes just hours after Donald Trump said a ceasefire between Israel and Iran was in effect after 12 days of deadly attacks that raised fears of a wider conflict in the Middle East. Israel says it agreed to the ceasefire after eliminating the Iranian nuclear threat. Iran earlier said it would only stop its attacks if Israel did the same. Hours before that ceasefire came into effect, Israel and Iran continued launching deadly attacks with at least 4 killed in Israel. Meanwhile, the UK has lifted advice for its citizens to shelter in Qatar after Iran launched a retaliatory attack on a US military base there. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel spoke to GB News ahead of the reported ceasefire violation.
Welcome the ceasefire, but you've just asked the most important question. Will it hold? And the onus has to be now on Iran to stop firing missiles and to actually come to the table. We don't know if it will hold. It's only been announced in the last few hours. And of course, we want all parties to come to the table in the right way, in the proper way, as President Trump has outlined. And we all want to see peace in this part of the Middle East.
Leaders from NATO are gathering in the Netherlands today, with the Prime Minister and President Trump both attending. At that summit, Sir Keir Starmer is due to announce an increase in defence spending to 5% of GDP, but not until 2035, to meet an era of radical uncertainty, but without promising any additional cash. 32 member countries, including the UK, are expected to agree to the 5% goal, with 3.5% to go on core defence and the remaining 1.5% on defence-related areas such as resilience and security. Downing Street has argued measures on energy and tackling smuggling gangs could be classified as security spending. The government's intention to increase defence spending to 5.5% of GDP by 2035 has been branded as hollow and unfunded by Reform UK. Alongside the spending commitment, the government published its national security strategy, which said the UK needed to be more competitive and robust in science, education, trade and technology. The summit will be Mark Rutte's first as Secretary-General of NATO. Speaking at a press conference yesterday, the former Dutch Prime Minister said the 5% spending commitment was a quantum leap that's ambitious, historic and fundamental to securing our future. New figures show that grocery prices are now 4.7% more expensive than a year ago as supermarket inflation hits its highest level since last March. The figure's up from 4.1% last month, which was a rise from 3.8% in April, according to data from Kantar. Price rises didn't stop British consumers from making 490 million trips to the supermarket over the last month, averaging almost 17 per household, and the highest recorded by Kantar since March in 2020. Amazon says it will invest £40 billion in the UK over the next 3 years as it creates thousands of jobs and opens 4 new warehouses. The online shopping giant will build 2 huge fulfilment centres in the East Midlands, which it expects to open in 2027. 2 others in Hull and Northampton were previously announced and are set to be finished this year and next year, respectively, with 2,000 jobs expected at each site. Amazon's already one of the country's biggest private employers, with around 75,000 staff. And Wimbledon plan to honour Sir Andy Murray with a statue at the All England Club. Murray, the Wimbledon men's singles champion in both 2013 and 2016, retired last year and will be involved in the designing of that sculpture. Wimbledon hopes the statue will be revealed in 2027 during the championship's 150th anniversary. And those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3607 and 1.1733 euros. The price of gold is £2,439.79 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,786 points. Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Welcome back.
Yeah, and we've got Mark White back in the studio with us. Mark White, Bev's still reeling from the revelations about your past life, of course. But we want to talk to you about just any more news on this, on the collapsing ceasefire.
No, other than the fact that Iran is denying in various sort of upper echelons of the Iranian regime, saying that they did not fire this ballistic missile, which begs the question, could it have been a rogue commander who fired that button? Because it's definitely been traced, the trajectory of the ballistic missile, all the way from Iran, because it was moments after it was launched that the alerts started going out, saying a missile had been launched from Iran. And then they tracked it all the way to northern Israel. They intercepted it, so there was no damage.
So no damage, no loss of life, but nevertheless Israel is still using that as a green light, if you like, I was going to say excuse, to launch another salvo of missiles at Iran.
Well, there is no doubt it is a breach of the ceasefire and hugely provocative. They don't know where a ballistic missile, so many of them have got through in recent days, including this morning in Beersheba in southern Israel that have killed 4 people and injured dozens as an apartment block there has been obliterated by that missile strike. You can see the images there of, you know, the damage that was done by that direct strike. So just because it was shot down doesn't mean that it wasn't an imminent threat to Israel having been launched. And the Israeli Defense Minister has said that he has now ordered the IDF to conduct strikes on the heart of the regime in the Iranian capital, Tehran. No indication that these strikes have taken place yet. But if they do, Iran's already saying that it will respond. So that is clearly a worrying potential cycle, a downward spiral that we might see ourselves going into after this agreement that looked so promising that Trump had managed to broker.
Of course, we're going to see Trump at the NATO summit in Holland. The Prime Minister's there. That's going to be the only show in town.
Yes, it will be interesting to see what Donald Trump has to say, especially if by that time both sides have resumed exchanging fire again and that fragile ceasefire that he'd managed to broker is at an end, what he has to say about that. The other interesting thing, of course, is just what Sir Keir Starmer and others are going to agree to with regard to our defence spending, which many have said is smoke and mirrors and promises to governments' heads.
Well, I'd certainly say. Could we also ask you about Zelensky was here yesterday, Mark? Now, 60 months ago when he came here, he was revered, red carpet treatment. Now, he did see the King yesterday. He did see the Prime Minister. He saw the Speaker of the House of Commons. But you'd hardly know he'd been here. Has Ukraine fallen off the political agenda worldwide? He's going to be at the NATO summit too, but I'm not sure he's getting a speaking role.
No, and there is no doubt that it has really not had the prominence that he would like it to have at the moment, because it's all about continuing to push home the message about how Ukraine is still continuing to be bombed with missiles and drones from Russia, to ensure that that is still in the front of the minds of the big decision makers around the world, to keep sending money to Ukraine to be able to fight that war. But while events have been unfolding in the Middle East, he's had to take a bit of a back seat, and sadly for him, the world has moved on. Now, that doesn't mean that once in the hope that things are settled in the Middle East, that he won't be able to gain a lot of attention again. He's still, of course, an important figure as far as the UK and others are concerned. We are still sending him billions of pounds in military and other aid.
All right.
I wanted, Mark, to talk to you about Trump's statement yesterday when he put on Truth Social on his social media site. Congratulations to everyone. It's been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire. The thing that obviously struck a lot of people was where he had said, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States and God bless the world. Do you think he has a right to be that self-congratulatory at the moment about the fact that this appears to have ended peacefully?
Well, I mean, it's certainly a fragile ceasefire, and maybe with the benefit of hindsight, you could say he was premature in that. But, it's classic Trump trolling, isn't it? And it's not diplomacy as traditional established countries around the world would see it, and it's not the kind of language they would use. But Donald Trump has his own particular way of conducting diplomacy, and it's often done with humour. And actually, many, especially within the liberal media around the world, get very exercised about what he says, really, that rather than what he does at the end of the day. Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and there's a lot that's out there that's designed to be provocative and to elicit some kind of a response. You don't necessarily have to take every literal word he says seriously, but look at the actions. And the actions seem to be of a man that's trying to get those sides around the table, just like he's trying to do, and thus far failing to do, with Ukraine and Russia. He obviously wants to see an end to these very destabilising conflicts. He has a different way of doing it.
Certainly does.
OK, thank you, Mark.
Stay with us, Mark White. We're going to talk now to Scott Lucas, of course, is Professor of International Politics, who's a friend of this programme. Scott Lucas, morning to you. We can never know how Donald Trump's going to react to anything, because he is, by very definition, he is mercurial. But he did boast, if you like, that with warm congratulations to Israel and Iran for the ceasefire, it's barely lasted 3 hours. Does he throw his toys out of the pram, or does he get back to the negotiating table and try to persuade them again to lay down arms?
Well, to follow on what Mark said, I think timing is very important here. The ceasefire was supposed to come into effect 9 a.m. Tehran time, 8:30 in Tel Aviv, 6:30 here. That was when the Netanyahu government finally said it would accept the ceasefire. They waited several hours, not only after Trump's announcements, but after Iran said it would accept. If you look at the Israel Defense Forces statement about the 2 Iranian ballistic missiles that were launched onto northern Israel, the timing is those 2 missiles were launched from Iran before the Netanyahu government's announcement. But I suspect they landed or they were intercepted over northern Israel after the Netanyahu announcement was made. Now, that means, and the Iranians are saying this, and I'm not defending Iran in any way, I'm not a big fan of the regime, but the Iranians are saying, look, we did not fire after the ceasefire was supposed to take effect. Now, the Israel Defense Minister, Israel Katz, had gone ahead and said in the meantime, and Mark referred to this, there are going to be these intense strikes on Tehran. What we're watching for is whether those strikes actually take place. So far, there's no indication that the Israeli Defense Forces are immobilized, and there's been silence from the Netanyahu government after that. So I think at this point, we can't say that the ceasefire is broken, but we're in a wait-and-see position. What I would say beyond that is that Trump being Trump, the issue last night is he was a bit premature in declaring a ceasefire, and he was very premature in declaring that Iran's nuclear facilities have been totally obliterated. They haven't. Iran still has quite a lot of those nuclear facilities. Experts have analyzed the damage from Saturday's U.S. strikes, and they've noted that the U.S. did not touch one of Iran's main facilities at Natanz. So even if this ceasefire holds, we'll still have this question about this Iranian nuclear program, which could recover within about 5 months.
I hear what you say about when the missile was launched, but I'm just looking, it's 1,500 miles, isn't it, I think, between Israel and Iran, yep. Scott. I was reading it could take as little as 12 minutes for a ballistic missile to go from Iran to Israel. So are we really suggesting that that was sent before the deadline?
That's the Israel Defense Forces timing. And I matched it up against the timing of the Netanyahu statement. Okay. Actually maps out to that. And again, those are probably the fastest Iranian ballistic missiles that could be sent across, but we don't know which missiles they used. So the missiles could have taken longer than 12 minutes to reach across. So in no way, this is not to defend Iran, this is not to defend Israel, this is to just identify one of those moments that occurs that makes ceasefire fragile. In that just before you get confirmation it's going to occur, each side is launching attacks up to the last minute. Indeed, the Iranians are saying the Israelis were doing the same thing this morning, launching attacks until that Netanyahu announcement. And even after the Netanyahu announcement was made, there were strikes on Tehran.
Lucas, that's Professor of International Policy. We've got Mark Whitesworth in. I think you've got some important breaking news, Mark.
Yeah, intelligence sources now confirming that Israeli warplanes are flying currently over southwestern Syria, heading, we're told, in the direction of Iran and towards the Iranian capital, Tehran. As instructed by the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz. The IDF and the Israeli Air Force instructed to carry out significant strikes against regime targets in Tehran. It seems that is what we may be witnessing now with these reports confirmed by intelligence sources that Israeli warplanes are currently flying over southwestern Syria en route to Iran.
It won't take them long to get there.
I'm not sure what the flight time will be, but it's certainly a lot longer than a ballistic missile, which, as you say, is 12 minutes.
And do we know, Mark, how long, how many planes are involved in this mission?
We don't. That kind of detail we don't have, and obviously for security reasons, the exact sort of timing and of arrival is something that's not been
massive escalation, completely at odds with what Trump's been saying, what Starmer's been saying.
Well, Iran has already said this morning after the ballistic missile strike, which they are denying, that if Israel responds, they will respond very significantly to Israel. So, yeah, we could, as I say, be in this very worrying downward spiral again.
The war is back on.
Well, you see, the thing is, if Trump has annihilated Iran's so-called kind of nuclear capability, what excuse have Israel got to carry on
bombing them back now.
Well, it's very interesting. The sort of targets that Israel has gone after in the last day, 2 days, have sort of changed from the nuclear complexes. They've still been going for the surface-to-surface missiles and other military, but they've changed in going after regime targets. So that prison, the Ervin prison, where Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe was one of the political prisoners who was there for a time. Hundreds of political prisoners there. They blew the front entrance off that prison, and a lot of other regime targets that are linked to the sort of internal security apparatus, those individuals, sort of military and policing divisions that are all about kind of suppressing the sort of the population that would rise up
so this
in
is
Iran.
About fomenting regime change.
Well, I think there's no doubt. Whatever Israel might have said in the early stages of this, they would like to see
off, so the prisoners can escape, and a lot of them would be political prisoners.
Well, I think you've got to draw that conclusion from the sort of targets that they've been going after just latterly.
Extraordinary. Well, Mark, I'm sure we'll be back with us. That's just to confirm, breaking news with Mark White, that Israeli fighter jets are flying as we speak to Tehran. The war, it seems to be back on. It only ended at 6:30.
I'm not so sure.
We'll see.
Time for a Great British giveaway now. Win £54,321 of tax-free cash. Here's Hayley Sparks with all your details.
We're here at Down Hall in Essex to enjoy the finer things in life, and it's your chance to win £54,321 in cash. It's like having an extra £1,000 in your bank account each week for a whole year, which means that you'd be able to indulge in treats whenever you wanted to. That extra cash each week could send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing this year to enable you to sit back, relax and do nothing. Make sure you don't miss out on our biggest cash giveaway to date.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Up next.
Right, our very own Mark White, it turns out he's a karaoke superstar, we've learnt this morning. So we want to know what you would call his karaoke bar. That, Mark White, is you mocked up by AI, dressed as Frank Sinatra.
Oh, I'm not sure I'm happy with that particular
Can I say,
shot.
you do not look a bit like Frank Sinatra at all. You look like a gangster in a
Go
top
on, Mark,
hat.
give us a few bars.
When I was 17, that was a very good year.
Well, this has been one of the
Thank
strangest
God you
interviews
gave
we've been
up your career as a karaoke star.
Well, I mean, you know, I didn't have time to tune up.
Plenty more madness on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
vegetarians now have a greater desire to wield power more than their meat-eating counterparts. I mean, you like a sausage, don't you, Big Ins?
I like a sausage, but I have gone off meat per se, funnily enough, as I'm getting older. I think there are, you know, it takes a lot of eating a piece of meat, if you pardon the expression.
And the older you get, the more you find that it takes a lot of...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I must admit, I have more of a conscience about eating meat as I get older.
Yeah.
And that's a fondness of animals brings that. And if you ever go on Instagram and you look at cows and horses and pigs,
they're wonderful
they're all
things.
affectionate
I
and
know,
incredible.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And there we are, putting it into our mouths and eating it.
What do you think about the move to enforce vegetarianism on people, though? Because especially in schools and some universities, there's this trend for meat-free Monday, where there's this enforced absence of meat on children.
I think it's ridiculous. Let kids do what they want, to be honest. Within reason, obviously, a healthy diet, da-da-da-da-da. But no, I think, you know, I don't eat meat, the husband eats meat. It's not an issue. Eat what you want. But I think the fact that they're trying to force this into schools, look, let kids experiment, give them a vegetarian option.
Yes,
let
yeah,
them
and all
see
schools do that.
Just options.
It has just become political, and also there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I know children are often told that eating meat is terrible for the environment, but importing avocados thousands of miles is also terrible for the environment.
But also, I mean, a lot of vegetarian meals, certainly processed vegetarian meals, have got a load of salt and fat and sugar in them, so they're actually worse for you than eating a lean piece of meat.
I think the tide is turning now, because the new trend amongst young people, particularly young men, is protein. Chicken, breasts, tuna. That's the new trend, to get as much protein in them as possible. It's very difficult to do when you're vegetarian.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We are going to hopefully bring you live pictures of Donald Trump on his way to the NATO summit in just a moment.
It's going to be a lively old affair with the ceasefire he thought was brilliant, which was going to last forever, apparently over.
Well, ceasefires are never like everyone just puts their guns down, are they? There's always a little bit of, you can have that, and you can have that, and you can have that.
There was a ballistic missile, which is a bit more than having that.
Well, look,
Israel
it's not funny.
is, as we speak, sending its fighter jets to Tehran. I think it is over. Gentlemen here.
Nigel Nelson,
use the word
Piers
advisory. Nigel and Piers. You've been advising politicians and political Tories for years and years and years. You advised Thatcher and Major. Next week is Keir Starmer's first anniversary as Prime Minister. I would say even Nigel Nelson would probably agree with me to say hasn't gone that well.
No, it's...
How would you advise him to spend the day?
Well, I think he should be looking forward to the summer recess and having a very long holiday, because there's much worse to come. He's got the strikes inevitably coming from the BMA. And the difference between Starmer and Trump is a marvellous Scottish word, gumption. Now, gumption means, and I've got the definition here for those viewers and listeners who don't know, gumption is the ability to decide what is the best thing to do in a particular situation, and then to do it with energy and determination. Now, whatever your views are on Trump, he's got gumption.
Yes, he certainly has.
The one thing Starmer hasn't got is any of that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, seconds before Trump bombed Iran, he was Starmer was talking about de-escalating, which is complete rubbish.
Well, it's not. If we want to stay on the fence on this one. The last thing.
Well, he wants to stay on the fence on everything.
We know what happened in Iraq and the mess we got into over there. So what Starmer is trying to do is keep Britain out of it. Well, and unless we're attacked, we should stay out.
Can't you still have a view on whether it's right or wrong what Trump did? You can't have a view as a Prime Minister. You're not committing any troops. Or
Israel is an ally.
I think there is a legal question over over what happened, and on the basis of that, I think it's probably wise not to have a view.
A typical Lord Hermer and his ludicrous legal opinions, rubbish. We are allowed to support an ally, and Israel is our ally. It's the only democracy in the region. And instead of sanctioning Israeli ministers and taking out and supporting an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, we should be 100% behind Israel and the action that America quite rightly took against a terrorist regime that is Iran. And it is, I mean, Starmer shows no leadership. He's a pathetic figure. He's a fool internationally. I mean, when you see him... Remember his coalition of the willing.
We don't want another Iran.
What's happened to Ukraine? He was going to sort out Ukraine. He set himself up as the leader of Europe, and
not quite the way Trump did. Trump was going to settle Ukraine in 24 hours, and that didn't go terribly well.
But he's trying to do something, and he tried to do something with Iran, and we should support him, not shilly-shally around. And don't forget, in NATO, once Trump arrives, then serious discussions will take place.
I think bouldering into war just because
but he's not
ally
saying that,
says we should.
I don't think Piers was saying Britain gets involved in a military action, but if I was asked...
You support an ally?
Do you support what Trump did to take out Iran's nuclear facility? Isn't it a yes or a no?
But isn't then the next question, well, why didn't you take part?
Because he didn't need us. They didn't need us.
Why wasn't Diego Garcia used?
We don't have those bombs. Anyway, the type that the Americans are the only people in the world who've got those particular bombs that were used. So we couldn't get involved, but we can support our allies and stand up and be counted to defend democracy and the freedom of the Western world, which Starmer singularly fails to do.
No, hang on. It's got nothing to do with defending democracy. The whole point of the attack on Iran was to take out any nuclear capability they might have. Now, there's a big question about whether that is the right thing to do.
Because the nuclear threat was a threat to democracy
because
in
of
the
the unintended consequences that come from that. Iran is more likely to develop nuclear weapons now than they were before they were attacked. If they've been able to hang on to the enriched uranium, then we're in more danger rather than less. That's what Kim Jong-un has done in North Korea, because he saw what happened to Libya and to Iraq, who didn't have nuclear weapons.
Do you accept they were developing a nuclear weapon? Because I think, why else were they building it in an underground bunker under a mountain?
Yeah, I mean...
Why the secrecy, Nigel? If they were just developing enriched uranium for a conventional nuclear energy programme, you wouldn't need to bury it in a mountain.
The evidence suggests they were working on nuclear capability. Yes, you're absolutely right. More evidence than we had in Iraq for WMD.
Sure.
They were weeks away of creating a potential missile.
Well, we don't know.
Nuclear missile. We are pretty certain about that.
But Netanyahu's been saying that for 30 years. They've got a nuclear bomb in 6 weeks. They've got a nuclear bomb in 6 months. Literally 30 years he's been saying that.
Well, I don't want to take the risk of them using it. And I also feel that you have to remember Iran is a treacherous regime in charge of Iran. Most of the people in Iran are living a dreadful life under this regime. And what's more, their proxies are Hezbollah, Hamas and the Houthis, who are enemies of this country.
No doubt
Let's be clear about that.
No doubt about it. I don't disagree with a word of that. The only thing I would say is what we are now going to see is consequences of an ongoing war in the Middle East is tons more people wanting to come and live here, fleeing war in the Middle East, making their way to Europe. And getting on to things. That is the upshot for this country.
If they go to Calais, there's a taxi service for them, waiting for them.
We're looking at pictures here of Air Force One. I believe this is Donald Trump's going to make his way to the NATO summit. We're going to bring you those pictures live from DC. But first of all, let's get your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. The headlines at 11:30. Israel's military says it's identified missiles launched from Iran towards Israel in what appears to be a violation of their ceasefire. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel spoke to GB News ahead of that reported violation.
Will it hold? And the onus has to be now on Iran to stop firing missiles and to actually come to the table.
Keir Starmer is due to announce an increase in defence spending to 5% of GDP, but not until 2035, to meet an era of radical uncertainty, he says. Meanwhile, the government published its national security strategy, which said the UK needed to be more competitive and robust in science, education, trade and technology. New figures show that grocery prices are now 4.7% more expensive than a year ago as supermarket inflation hit its highest level since last March. Amazon says it'll invest £40 billion in the UK over the next 3 years as it creates thousands more jobs and opens 4 new warehouses. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest, GB News direct to your smartphone. Sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Newsroom. And Emily and Tom are here with us, hot-footing it into the studio. That 60-second news bulletin doesn't give you a huge amount of time to get in. Tom is still
He's still getting
putting
dressed.
his microphone on.
It's not very elegant.
He's still getting dressed.
But I'll just leave.
Elegant solution
I'll just leave my microphone in a slightly more haphazard way
Yes,
than
I think
it
it's
is
probably
normal.
the wrong way round, Tom. But there we go. Doesn't matter.
We've had a very strange show this morning. We've heard about Mark White owning a karaoke bar in Thailand, and we even had a rendition.
Who'd have thought it?
Oh, yeah.
So, how strange is your show going to be this afternoon?
Well, we might be hearing more about Bangkok, or we might be hearing more about Sir Keir Starmer's authority, or lack of it, with this brewing rebellion, 100-plus MPs.
A massive rebellion.
Yeah,
all those
massive.
select committee chairmen, and they're not just saying they just want to stop the entire legislation. If they did that, that's a huge blow to his authority.
And can we be clear on what this legislation is as well?
Yeah.
The disability benefits budget is still rising.
Massively.
It's rising by £8 billion per year by the end of the decade.
It's hopeless.
The government wants to save £5 billion. So still more than half of the projected expansion is going to happen.
Yeah.
If the government doesn't even have the authority to trim the rate of increase in the disability benefits bill, what authority does this government have? Has the dam broken after the winter fuel U-turn, after we've seen now an expected U-turn on perhaps non-DOMs? Lots of different areas where this government seems to have, despite its enormous majority in the House of Commons, lost its authority.
It's tricky, though, when you spent the whole time in opposition disputing any tiny cut out there from the Tories' side. So I can see why a lot of Labour MPs are disgruntled by
this. And a lot
this.
of Labour MPs are already nervous and looking over their shoulder, worrying about their majorities, thinking, am I going to lose my job?
There's that too, isn't there?
Always concentrates
Well, this is the thing. Looking at the polls, we now have 2 polls out in the last 2 days that puts Reform at a lead of, I think it's 9 and 7 points in 2 different pollsters. If you're a Labour MP who's in the backbench now and you think, I've got a slim majority, Reform's breathing down my neck, I'm probably not going to last this Parliament. There's no way I'm going to become a minister with all of these different Labour MPs here. I'm not going to be able to become a minister in the next 4 years. I'm going to be out by the end of the Parliament. Why not speak up on what I believe in? Why toe the line if actually I'm only going to be in this place for 4 years? I might as well speak my mind rather than play the game.
And they're not happy with Keir Starmer because he is so deeply unpopular at the moment, and it looks like that's going to continue. So we'll bring you that and lots more. Reform have got a new idea for a bill that's very interesting. I'll leave it at that. We'll bring it
Leave them on a knife edge with that one. Emily and Tom. Now, in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Andy Tobias. He's from the Chinook Justice Campaign. It's a really fascinating story. You may not be familiar with it. This is a picture of Andy here, and that was his father, who he lost in the helicopter crash, a military crash in 1994. We're going to be finding out why they still don't have any answers. First of all, European weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you or someone you know is heading further afield over the next few days, you can expect widespread sunshine across the Mediterranean, and it's going to be breezy for Greece. The usual seasonal wind blowing through the Greek islands as a result of heat building over Turkey. The heat builds over Italy and the Balearics during the next few days. We're going to see unusually high temperatures during Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's mostly fine across Iberia and into the Canary Islands. But you can see the temperature rise in Italy there up to the mid to high 30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Bit of a mixed bag today, fairly cloudy, some rain in places and still quite breezy, but parts of the southeast in particular seeing some warm sunshine. Here's the bigger picture. Low pressure sitting to the north. This tangle of weather fronts has been edging its way in across the country. This cold front will bring some rain to southern Scotland and Northern Ireland around the middle of the day, but as that clears away, it should turn drier here later on. Staying fairly dull and damp over the Pennines. A little bit of rain at times getting into parts of Yorkshire too. Much of the south looking dry, and parts of East Wales, the Midlands, towards East Anglia, seeing some warm but humid sunshine. Temperatures in this zone getting up to 25, 26 degrees as possible. Through the evening time, we'll continue to see a little bit of that rain tracking south into northern England. Always showers coming into western parts of Scotland. Probably not too many getting into the east coast. Staying largely fine here and turning a bit drier and brighter through the afternoon and evening through the central belt and across Northern Ireland. Staying mostly cloudy, but the rain should start to ease. We'll keep some outbreaks of rain going over northern England, parts of West Wales, but much of Wales, central and southern England having a fine evening. Still quite breezy, however. That breeze will continue to ease down overnight, and the rain will continue to trickle its way southwards. Parts of Wales having a damp night, some patchy rain still over northern England, maybe heading into the Midlands, and some scattered showers in western Scotland. But many eastern areas having a dry night for sure. Temperatures holding up in double figures, holding up in the mid-teens across a good part of England and Wales. So quite a warm, humid feel here again tomorrow. Rain and drizzle at times in South Wales, maybe affecting parts of the West Midlands. But for many, I suspect it'll be a dry day tomorrow and a better chance of seeing some sunny spells, especially for North Wales. Northern England looking a lot brighter too. The odd shower in western Scotland. And it's really quite warm and humid, and the chance of some thunderstorms coming up to the south later tomorrow.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. So 21 years ago, an RAF Chinook helicopter crashed on the Mull of Kintyre, killing 4 crew and 25 passengers.
Remarkably, all these years later, the families are still waiting for answers as to why the disaster happened, and they want the Ministry of Defence to release documents which have been sealed for 100 years.
So let's speak now to the son of one of the victims of the 1994 Mull of Kintyre Chinook crash, Andy Tobias. Morning, Andy. I'm ashamed to say that I hadn't heard about this story until it came across my desk. How difficult is it for you to get this story out there still, and why? Just explain to our viewers why we haven't heard about it.
Yeah, I mean, these documents have been locked and sealed away for 100 years, and we as families only found out on a BBC documentary about a year ago that they had been locked away for that period of time, and it's a grotesque period of time with no clarity as to why, and all it suggests is the huge amount of suspicion regarding what's in those documents. So for us as a campaign group, we're really now looking to get access to those documents so we can look and see what's in them. And my guess is a lot of people don't know about it because the Ministry of Defence don't want you to.
And it suits them. The helicopter had come from Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland was still in the grip of the Troubles.
Correct.
And there were people on board, I think, who perhaps worked for MI5, MI6, involved in intelligence work. Do you think that is something to do with why there's so much secrecy?
There's a strong possibility on that, but you're talking to son of a dead father, and from my perspective, I want the truth. And I feel like the government is not giving us the transparency that we deserve. They have made a big campaign about duty of candour and trying to introduce the Hillsborough Law, which is all about giving you access and truth and transparency, and we're not getting it. So that's really what we're fighting.
We've had this with the post office, the infected scandal.
Correct.
This seems to be fitting into the same category.
Completely. And if you look at the post office, it was all to do with software, the Horizon software. If you're looking at this case, it was software also that had been recently introduced into the new Chinook Mark II. And that software was described as positively dangerous by the test engineers from the Ministry of Defence before the crash took place. So their own engineers were informing them that this Chinook Mark II was not safe for flight. And in our view and their view, it should never have been airworthy.
So it might not be anything as sinister as that there were people on that plane, perhaps, who knew things that needed to be disposed of. That's one theory. The other theory just being that it was just corporate manslaughter, that the equipment wasn't fit for purpose.
And if people listening on the radio, we've just got still photographs of the wreckage. It was smashed to pieces, the helicopter.
It was smashed to pieces. There was not a lot of evidence to go by with the team that were investigating it at that point in time. But we know... we have documents which are on our website, which is on chinookjusticecampaign.co.uk, which actually confirm that the Ministry of Defence knew pre and post the flight that there were continuous issues with the Chinook Mark IIs. So, you know, why let it fly?
It had been declared unairworthy, hadn't it?
It had been declared unairworthy by these engineers who said that nobody should be flying on these.
What's the impact been on your poor mother and you and your brother since 1994?
Yeah, it's a huge impact. You know, losing your father at such a young age. I was 8, my brother was 10.
How old was your dad?
My dad was 41.
So a young man.
Young man. I'm 39 now, so I'm close to his age.
Yeah.
So the impact was huge for us, and you know, not having a father to direct you through life, take you to your first football games, it's been impacting me and my brother. But
that's the one impact of kind of the grief. But I mean, as much as that is the impact on not having any answers or any sort of explanation, or perhaps even compensation. I think the families were compensated financially, weren't you? But that isn't what you're looking for now.
No, the agenda is not about compensation. It's all about truth and transparency. And we're finding that the Ministry of Defence have been quite deceitful by not sharing these documents with the families and giving us access to this information.
It's really disturbing, isn't it? Because your dad, everybody on board that helicopter, representing Queen and Country, willing to fight for Queen and Country, and yet you cannot get simple, basic answers about why that unairworthy helicopter was in the air and crashed to smithereens. No survivors.
Yeah, I mean, my father died in service of his country. You know, he put his life on the line along with everybody else on that helicopter to keep you, me and everybody else here in this country safe. And the fact that the Ministry of Defence is not prepared to even release documents to give us families access to know what's in them is nothing short of disgraceful.
Well, let me just tell you what they do say, because I'd be interested in your response to this. The Ministry of Defence say the Mulluck Tyre crash was a tragic accident. Our thoughts and sympathies remain with the families, friends and colleagues of all who's died.
They always say that.
The closed records held at the National Archives contained personal information relating to third-party individuals, and the early release of that information would breach their data rights. We've received a pre-action protocol letter from the Chinook Justice Campaign and are considering our response. What's your response to that?
I mean, documentation can be redacted. If it's about personal PII-related information, you can redact that. I'm not looking to actually look at the documents myself. I want somebody qualified to review those and advise us. So, you know, I just think it's a nonsense response.
And before we let you go, Andy, have you got politicians taking up the cudgels on your behalf?
We are campaigning. We have reached out to the likes of David Davis. We listened to a podcast where George Osborne had confirmed that Liam Fox even believes that the Chinook aircraft was not airworthy.
He's the former Defence Secretary. Fox.
He was the Defence Secretary at the last inquiry. That was back in 2011, I think.
Yeah.
But just we as families are united, we're strong, we're defiant, and for us, justice has no expiry date, and that's what we're really pushing for.
Well, look, best of luck with the campaign, and we're going to keep in touch with you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Interesting. Right, up next, we've got some big breaking lines coming from American President Donald Trump as he waits to board that aeroplane there you're seeing on your screens. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We have some breaking news. Donald Trump has been active on social media in the last few minutes before he gets on that plane to go to the NATO summit. Who better to explain what's happening than our Home and Security editor, Mark White. Mark.
Well, this is interesting. Donald Trump is not a happy man at all after brokering this ceasefire. He said that both Israel and Iran violated this ceasefire really within hours of it being agreed. Well, interestingly, he seems particularly unhappy with Israel. He says, and let me just find the actual quote, that Israel and Iran he is very angry with, but Israel in particular he is annoyed with.
Is this because of the scale of the retaliation, Mark?
Well, the fact that that they were exchanging what he described as Israel, he said that the fact that Israel unloaded in this way just after agreeing to this truce. He also said that Iran, as far as the nuclear capabilities is concerned, they have been obliterated, repeating that sort of belief that he said after the strikes on those 3 nuclear complexes. But he said, so he said that Israel unloaded right after they agreed to a ceasefire. And then, as I say, going on to say about the fact that Iran will not be able to build its nuclear capabilities. But the key quote here, I think, is, I'm not happy with Israel, not happy at Iran either, but really unhappy with Israel.
So that's strange between him and Netanyahu.
Well, absolutely, of course. So he was speaking just before boarding Air Force One, which is, of course, going to be heading out to the NATO summit. So I'm sure he'll probably speak to the travelling media contingent on Air Force One as well.
And that'll come out.
And that'll come out. But he'll have something to say on the other side. And by that time, we may be in a very serious situation again back in the Middle East because of the news we brought you about these Israeli warplanes flying currently over southwestern Syria en route, it seems, to Iran.
And the NATO summit today we thought was going to be all about various leaders saying, yes, we will spend more money on defence, Mark, but this will dominate now. Trump's response, what's happened, Israel retaliating, the bomb from Iran that Iran say the missile they say they didn't send. That's going to be the big issue.
Yeah, I'm sure that President Trump will be desperately trying to get things, back on track again in terms of the ceasefire, and will have, I'm sure, spoken to Benjamin Netanyahu already, and may well be doing that as he gets on the plane. What you're looking at the moment is Marine One. So basically, it's Marine One and accompanying helicopters. Donald Trump always speaks before he boards Marine One. The rotors are going. You can never hear a word he says. It's really difficult to pick up. And then they head off Andrews Air Force Base to
so Marine One takes him from the
Air Force One.
Takes him from White House to take him to
Andrews Air Force Base, where they then are. They then board Air Force One at that point for the flight across to the Netherlands.
And all the time this is going on, Donald Trump has got to be thinking about his base in America, who voted for him with America first. And they don't want him necessarily getting involved in wars that they would see as being not in our backyard. What is the point? And I can totally understand why he's cross fundamentally with Netanyahu, because it looks like Netanyahu is manipulating Donald Trump, and he's got the power in that relationship.
You raise a really good point there, because there are many within the base who are not at all happy that there was any kind of a strike, even if it was a limited strike on Iran, because they have seen what's happened to Donald Trump. It was part of his election strategy as well. He is not going to go into the forever wars that other presidents have gone into. But it's one thing about the Middle East, isn't it, that's a truism. You might go in there thinking that you are going to deal a quick and decisive blow, and then you get bogged down for decades at a time and end up coming away with your fingers well and truly burnt, with hundreds of your own service personnel dead and home in coffins, and a situation in the country that you thought you were going in to help sort out that is even more dysfunctional than it ever was before you went in the first place.
I can remember George W. Bush flying into Iraq after Saddam Hussein was defeated. He was wearing a black bomber jacket saying, "We did it." Everybody cheering the commander-in-chief. They hadn't done it at all. There had been no planning for post-Iraq victory, and we're still paying the price today.
And we are still, over in Europe, the victims of the mass migration of displaced people when events kick off in the Middle East. And that will be the outcome here. Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. This is the outcome for us here in this country.
Really interesting that, because at the moment there's a significant representation on the small boats from Iran. Now, they are mainly Kurdish Iranians, but that may well change if the situation in that country really deteriorates, and then you see people fleeing Iran in the same way they fled Syria, in the same way they fled Iraq, in the same way they fled Afghanistan. So that is a real concern.
Those pictures are already coming out of Iran. Thousands of cars on the freeways, on the motorways out of Iran, desperately trying to escape. And I just saw the pictures. I thought, well, where are they going to go?
Well, absolutely, because remember, of course, President Trump himself, and it was retweeted and posted by other members of his administration, warned the people of Tehran, evacuate now, and they did, in their hundreds of thousands, trying to get out of the Iranian capital and out of the way of harm's way. I think we've got Donald Trump there.
Let's see if we can hear Donald Trump.
Speaking now.
ridiculous. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. All I do is play both sides. I'm going now, as you know, to NATO. Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Are you going to be the agreement? It's a new dawn in the Middle East, thanks to the agreement you managed to achieve. What are your future plans for the region, for Saudi Arabia, Israel, Gaza, the hostages?
Look, you're asking me about women in the Middle East. It's getting a lot better. Things are happening at a high level. As you know, Saudi Arabia's done a really good job. It's coming out far faster than I thought. So we're very happy about what's happening with women in the Middle East.
No, I'm talking about a new dawn in the Middle East that you managed to achieve last night.
Yeah.
You know, the region is going to a new place with this agreement. Can you tell us what's your future plans for Gaza, for the hostages?
It's a new dawn. I appreciate the question. You're very nice. Who are you?
Thank you. I'm Krause from Israeli Channel 13 News.
Well, we have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning. I got to get Israel to calm down now.
Did you get to speak with the Prime Minister? Did you talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu last night?
I speak to everybody.
You urge both sides not to violate the ceasefire, but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think they both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
Have you
spoken to him this morning?
How confident are you
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all. And frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots, they're after me. They want to try and demean.
You don't believe that Iran can rebuild its nuclear program?
No, Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there? Absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Well, there we have it. The remarks of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to US media as he walks there to Marine One, the helicopter that transports the United States President. Joining myself and Emily Carver in the studio is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, a pretty extraordinary state of affairs.
Well, it is extraordinary, and there is an explicit warning to Israel. President Trump has said in terms, Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it's a major violation. Bring your pilots home now. Right, so that is in response to the fact that as we speak, Israeli warplanes are flying over southwestern Syria, heading for Iran in what the Israeli Defence Minister said will be a very significant response targeting Iranian regime infrastructure within Tehran in response to what was a ballistic missile that was fired from Iran this morning after that ceasefire took hold. But President Trump saying, look, the response from Israel is just not justified. This was one ballistic missile that, according to President Trump there, was either misfired or fired in error and was quickly taken out by the defence systems of Israel and does not warrant what will be, he says, a violation of this ceasefire. So absolutely no doubt about this. He said it there. He's going to board Air Force One now, and clearly he will be hammering home that message to Benjamin Netanyahu to get that message through to those pilots to turn around. It'll be very interesting to see whether Israel is willing to completely defy what Donald Trump is trying to direct them to do.
Yeah,
it couldn't be clearer.
Donald Trump desperately trying to keep a lid on this.
Yes, there's no doubt, because I think he was understandably very pleased with the fact that he could bring the sides together to agree a ceasefire. And he put out, of course, on Truth Social, his congratulations to everyone concerned, and that, you know, this was, as far as he was concerned, a major triumph. So, but it was very fragile, clearly.
I guess it's easy for Donald Trump to say, well, it's not easy for Donald Trump to say, but he can say it, but it's Israel who's been targeted by Iran directly. So presumably they'll have a different take on this entirely.
Yes, indeed. I mean, listen, these issues around the Middle East are never, ever straightforward. And we know that Donald Trump ran for the presidency on both occasions, saying that he was never for a forever war. He didn't want to get caught up in the mess that are these wars in the Middle East or elsewhere. We see it, of course, now in Ukraine as well. He's been very reluctant to go down that particular path, and that's why I think there are many people within his own base very alarmed at the decision by Donald Trump to enter this war in the first place by bombing these nuclear installations. I mean, he has been very quick to say that that was a one-off endeavour to ensure that those nuclear facilities were dismantled, were destroyed, that that capability was no longer there for Iran to build a nuclear bomb. Mission accomplished as far as he was concerned. But of course, then he wanted to see Israel get on board with that, because the very reason that Israel said it had gone into Iran in the first place was to stop it getting a nuclear bomb. Now, it looks as though in the last couple of days, the mission for Israel has changed a bit. They've been going after regime targets. So the kind of apparatus that is responsible for state security, for the forces that are often employed to suppress the local population when they rise up against the Iranian regime. So a real sort of indication, perhaps, that Israel was minded to try to do all that it could to destabilise the Iranian regime. That's not what Donald Trump was looking for. And that's why he's clearly been able, or certainly as of early this morning, been able to persuade the two sides that enough is enough for now, that a ceasefire should be agreed to and they should step back from the brink. But we've had it violated so very quickly after that ceasefire came in.
And there is so much riding on this. This morning we saw oil prices actually fall to lower than they were before this crisis. Donald Trump had been posting on Truth Social saying, drill, baby, drill, everyone keep these oil prices down. It seemed like he was on for not just a sort of military diplomatic success, but an economic success too. And this is all now in severe jeopardy. As we speak, these planes flying over Syria, perhaps halfway between Israel and Iran, and yet no indication that the Israelis are turning these planes back, no indication that actually we've had any sort of public statement from Benjamin Netanyahu since we heard those words from Donald Trump. This is a moment of severe jeopardy.
Yeah, I mean, let's see if the word gets through. We simply don't know whether the planes will be turned back or not. They might well be. Benjamin Netanyahu might decide, given you couldn't get a more explicit and direct instruction, demand from the President of the United States, Israel's biggest ally and backer, to now back off and turn those planes around. If Benjamin Netanyahu decides to go ahead in his own national interest and on the belief of his war cabinet that this is the step they've got to take, then you've got to realise that, you know, in doing that, you are going to suffer really the ire of your biggest supporter and sponsor.
And Mark, do we have an idea on who's right in terms of Iran's violation of the ceasefire? Donald Trump saying it was a mistake or an error. Perhaps only one missile doesn't warrant this type of response. The IDF saying it's a severe violation of the ceasefire and therefore they must respond with force. Is the truth somewhere in the middle?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry, just for a second, I've been distracted by the Prime Minister, who has given a response in relation to the apparent violation of the ceasefire. And he has said, well, I want the ceasefire to continue, and therefore, obviously, the sooner we get back to that, the better. And that's the message that I'm discussing with other leaders today. We need to get back to that ceasefire, which is consistent with what I've been saying about de-escalation for quite some time. I should just say that I exchanged messages with the Emir of Qatar yesterday as well, in relation to the attack yesterday. But whatever Sir Keir Starmer says, and whether he's speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis, they're far, far less likely to listen to anything the UK government has to say and what Sir Keir Starmer has to say, particularly in light of a cooling off of relationships between the UK and the Israelis in recent weeks, than they will be for this man on board Air Force One now, as this aircraft turns around, taxis with a view to taking off, heading for the Netherlands for that important NATO meeting. But also, without a doubt, we will have a news conference and words from Donald Trump, which he will be even more fulsome than he has been there. And we'll know, of course, by the time that Donald Trump lands, whether Benjamin Netanyahu has listened to that warning, to that demand from the US president to turn those planes around and not drop those bombs.
What a significant moment for this all to be happening, of course, as Trump is heading to that NATO meeting. We can just see, for those listening on the radio, Air Force One beginning its taxi, as Mark was saying, to take off there just outside Washington, D.C. for that flight over the Atlantic. And to be honest, what could happen over that 7-hour flight, 8-hour flight, is really up in the air, as up in the air as that plane will be. It could be an entirely different situation in the Middle East by the time the President of the United States lands at that NATO headquarters, compared to what we are now experiencing while he is there for these few final seconds on the ground there in the United States of America.
Do you want an indication of just how clearly exasperated Donald Trump is? Yeah. Transcription of something that he said, I missed it actually on what has been played back here. But he said, speaking about Iran and Israel, they've been fighting for so long and so hard that they don't know what the F they're doing. You understand that? So an expletive. He's so exasperated, clearly, at what's going on, so angry that the ceasefire that he's brokered has been broken so very quickly. Of course, it's embarrassing for him as well, given how fulsome he was in his own, praising his own efforts on his social media accounts
and he wants just to be hours earlier. That's what he wants his legacy, or at least part of his legacy to be, is peacemaker.
Yeah.
Whether it's between Ukraine, Russia, whether it's between Israel, Palestine, and now Iran. That's what he wants, and this is yet another obstacle. And will he be able to control the Israeli Defence Forces? That's the big question right now.
Well, Donald Trump is a shoot-from-the-hip kind of a guy in terms of the rhetoric that you get from him. But, he's learning a lesson about affairs in the Middle East. These wars have been raging for thousands of years in the Middle East, and diplomacy is exasperating as well, because it is often at such a glacial pace in the way in which inroads are made. He wants, and understandably, he wants things done and done quickly, and he wants an end to the fighting now. But he is finding out that these, old enemies take an awful lot of convincing to actually just step back from the brink, as we see now Air Force One picking up speed, heading down this runway to head off to Europe for that vital NATO summit.
And we will try and get that replay of the president's extraordinary outburst ready for you. Of course, this is daytime television. We will bleep the expletive that he used.
I hope so.
But this is, to all intents and purposes, I think the first time the President of the United States has said a swear word like that in front of the world's media. Lots of reports that Trump has been perhaps quite coarse in private, but in public, in front of the assembled press, what a moment. And as you say, Mark, it speaks to the mind of the man right now. This is clearly a very angry United States president on board that plane as it takes off for the Netherlands.
Yeah, I wonder what they will be thinking in Tehran about this, because he was clear that it was Israel that he really singled out in terms of expressing great anger and disappointment. He said, of course, both sides, Iran, he was disappointed with, Israel he was disappointed with, but particularly, he said, Israel unloading so soon after this ceasefire and making that very explicit warning. Now, he said, with regard to that ballistic missile, I think what amounts to the fact there was his belief that it was either a misfire or some kind of a mistake, that ballistic missile came over from Iran in the first place, and said, again in terms, it has been quickly dealt with. It posed no threat. It was taken out of the skies by Israel's defences. What is happening now seems completely unwarranted in terms of the level of the response that Israel is about to embark on.
But it may be that the Israelis, they're very much at the coalface, aren't they, of the Iranian threat in a way that the rest of the West isn't. They've got Hezbollah, they've got Hamas, all sponsored and paid for by the Iranian regime. You can see why they may, in Trump's words, overreact.
Yes, indeed. We should say on the sort of reports that both Israel and Iran violated the ceasefire. Again, this is just kind of taking some of the quotes from his impromptu chat to the press there as he's about to board Marine One for then Air Force One. He said, I'm not sure they did it intentionally, Iran and Israel. They couldn't rein people back. He said, I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. As soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it. So clearly, once he's on Air Force One, and now it's taken off, once he's in the position to do, once they have climbed and they've reached the point where they've levelled off, he'll be straight on the phone, it seems, to Israel.
Well, shall we at this point bring in the retired British Army officer, Sir Simon Mayle. Sir Simon, thank you for being on the line for us as this situation has continued to develop over the course of this afternoon. I mean, firstly, your reaction to that extraordinary outburst from the President of the United States amidst this moment of jeopardy in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, I don't think any of us are terribly surprised about how Donald Trump expresses himself quite often. There's clearly huge frustration about the fact that he had negotiated a ceasefire on the back of the American actions against Fordo and Natanz. And equally, there's great frustration. The Israelis have decided to throw his support back in his face. There's quite clearly a huge load of frustration with the way the attack on Iran has been reported by the mainstream media in the US as well. I think that came through very clearly, that Donald Trump felt he had achieved something quite significant, and quite clearly his enemies in the mainstream media, which we know well, have decided to question a lot of the motivation or the results, etc. So one felt, given the character of the man, the situation, the current situation on the back of his announcements, that there was quite a lot boiling up there, and he was dying to get on the phone and vent off to somebody.
Sir Simon, I mean, the IDF say that last night their Navy intercepted over 15 UAVs, which are unmanned drones, aren't they, launched by Iran. They say that this is a severe violation of the ceasefire, and that therefore they are justified in responding with force.
Yes, and I think it was you who said, one does have to understand the mindset of Israel that has been attacked over many, many years by Iran itself, but largely through Iran's proxies. There is a feeling of revenge that Israel can actively attack Iran itself. We had a couple of exchanges during, obviously, the Gaza, the ongoing situation in Gaza. I would be interested to know what Israel thinks they can hit that would be so important, and there might be something that they'd want to put President Trump's back up, because, as you quite rightly said, the Americans have been so staunch in covering Israel's back, and to throw something back in Donald Trump's face, unless you really have some targets that you really think this could be our last chance. Better to ask forgiveness than permission, that old cry. And it might be a last spasm before they say, OK, got it. They've done this before. Equally, they are always, as we know, absolutely ruthless when it comes to responding to attacks on their homeland. So we shouldn't be surprised, but wise heads do need to weigh in the balance, upsetting the president, upsetting those who are supporting Israel, while also justifiably defending themselves. So one is hoping that whatever's happening, they are really thinking this thing through at the moment, because we do need Israel and America and, dare I say, NATO allies, who Trump is going to talk to be absolutely on the same page when it comes to Iran. We can't have splits in the Western alliance.
Sir Simon, Mark White here. Can I ask you, obviously with your great military experience here, we heard explicitly from the President there, expressing, of course, his exasperation, but desperately pleading with the Israelis to turn those warplanes around, don't drop those bombs. In your experience, once that command has been given and they're en route to carry out that mission, they're not going to turn it around, are they, even if this is the President of the United States?
Oh, they could do, Mark. I mean,
I think quite a lot of this is, I won't say, I don't want to trivialise it, political performative violence. Some of the Iranian response to the American strike, you thought, yes, you've got to do something. Those planes could be turned around, and of course, Benjamin Netanyahu may be launching them in order to do the president a favour, or say, I could go off the reservation. So it's quite interesting to look at the national psychologies and the psychologies of the individuals. But right up to the last moment, they could abort those missions. And so that will be the interesting thing about that conversation. There's quite a lengthy flight time from Israel across Syria and Iraq before they close on Tehran. But America's very keen to say, we dealt with a discrete problem. It was the Iranian nuclear file. We now want Iran without a bomb, but Iran in a complicit situation. And of course, we don't know quite how maximalist the Israeli, or certainly Benjamin Netanyahu's objectives are in Iran.
Now, I should say that we're just getting word that Trump is currently holding a phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu live, sort of 30,000 feet in the air aboard Air Force One. What is being said in that phone call, of course, we can only guess at. But given the temperament of Donald Trump as he was there just before boarding Marine One, no doubt he will be perhaps expressing just as fruity language with the Israeli Prime Minister, but also repeating that call to not drop those bombs. Of course, it is within the gift of Israel to turn those planes around. So, Simon, do you expect that Netanyahu will listen or that he will carry on?
I think it really depends. Just what is of such significance that you would throw whatever in the face of your major ally. You can guarantee the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and every senior American official and military man will have been on to their Israeli counterparts as well. And so what the explanation is, or whether, as I say, I'm going to seek forgiveness rather than permission. Oh, so sorry, President Trump. At last, got it. That won't happen again, because they're going after something really specific or someone really specific. But I couldn't imagine that they would do it again. But they may know Netanyahu, and we've all watched him and studied him for so many years. He has a skin like a rhino, and he may feel he could face down even the President of the United States. Equally, I don't think there can be many targets that would be worth alienating a man like President Trump, particularly given his style of leadership. Let alone all the goodwill of the American establishment towards Israel. And I think many Israelis would be slightly horrified if they felt he was compromising that very close relationship.
But with the conflict in Gaza, Israel becoming used to acting alone?
Very much. I mean, be under no illusions, and I'm sure you aren't. The political landscape in the Middle East has changed dramatically since the 7th of October. And there are people really worried that Israel is now the military hegemon. It obviously needs to buy its equipment, restock its weapons supplies, etc. But the removal of Iran as a significant power there, obviously the Saudis will be watching that. The Egyptians will be watching. Erdogan in Turkey will be watching. The militias in Iraq will be watching. It really is a really significant shift in balance. And what, of course, we don't want is just to go into an extended period of volatility and violence. As you quite rightly said in your earlier reports, given the track record of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, let alone what's going on in Gaza at the moment. So trying to manage this, having dealt with a discrete problem set, the Iranian nuclear file, and then managing the fallout, and there are always going to be consequences, will be really difficult. And don't underestimate the mindset of the Iranian high command. This is existential to them, having led the Islamic Revolution and having this view about the future millenarian approach to Shiism and the coming of the occluded Mahdi, etc. Do not underestimate how sincerely felt that is by a number of people.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because there have been some reports in Iran. There have been some reports that the sort of religious mullahs are taking a back seat, and the IRGC is more powerful than ever within the sort of structures of decision-making in Iran. Is it becoming a more militarised place, and does that affect what sort of decisions might be made when it comes to firing their ballistic missiles or otherwise?
Yes, their options are limited. I mean, we have seen that we would have thought the best they can do, and it's been fairly pitiful in many ways, but there's no doubt about it. There are people who were very angry with Khamenei and perhaps some of the senior leadership of the IRGC that they weren't more aggressive towards Israel at the time when Hezbollah were being attacked, Hamas were being, degraded. And so I think you will get a younger, more hardline set of IRGC leaders. Hence, it's interesting to know what target set the Israelis think is probably worth annoying the Americans with at this stage. And it might be, again, trying to degrade the IRGC. But the difference, of course, between Syria and Iraq is they were minority governments, as it were. It was Sunni minority in Iraq, Shia minority in Syria. Of course, here you've got an alignment with the majority Shia Iranians between the supreme leader, the IRGC, the Basij, etc. So there's a huge internal dynamic in Iraq, which we haven't seen in Iran, which we haven't yet seen play out, because we know there's deep dissatisfaction in many quarters for different reasons about why Iran is now in the situation it's in, and it's extremely weak at the moment. But that doesn't make it less dangerous in some ways.
So, Simon, Mark White again. We're just hearing, I wonder if I can run this by you. An Israeli official has said that they are still likely to go ahead with the strike, regardless of the demand from President Trump. However, they consider it a symbolic response, and only one target will be struck. So that might mean, Sir Simon, I think, that they are listening to Trump, but they don't want to be impotent enough to sort of pull back from it. Do you think if one target, I know I'm trying to put you in the mind of Donald Trump or someplace to be, but do you think if one target is struck, that might be a sort of get out for Donald Trump to say, look, they listened to me, they reined back what they were about to do here?
Yes, I do, to be honest with you, Mark. I think the stakes are so high. As I say, I think the attack on Al Udeid was fairly performative. I think the Iranians felt they had to do something. I don't know who launched that missile. It obviously, again, wasn't significant. And the Israelis feel they can't just let it pass. So I think there'll be a relatively grown-up conversation. And as I say, I find it very difficult to believe unless there was some absolutely literally strategically vital target that the Israelis felt they were going to hit short of a ceasefire, that they'd want to really upset the President of the United States.
Can I just interrupt again, as we've got a breaking line, Sir Simon? This, according to Reuters, coming from President Trump, saying Israel is not going to attack Iran. All planes will turn around and head home. So conflicting slightly with what we were hearing from that Israeli source. So let's see if that's borne out. But again, do you think that in doing that, Benjamin Netanyahu might feel that actually he feels a bit impotent if he's taking his orders directly from the President of the United States, having ordered his Air Force in?
I very much doubt that, Mark. I think the vast bulk, I suspect, of the Israeli High Command, IDF, and Israelis will be delighted. As you know, there's severe disquiet about the motivations of Benjamin Netanyahu. I think what they're proving again to the Iranians, and again, it's performative, I believe, unless there's some target they, as I say, have identified they particularly think they could strike now, is to demonstrate to the Iranians, trust me, it's only because we've been reined in by our closest ally that we weren't coming at you for that. You better not do that again. But we're going to back off this time. Again, like you, Mark, I'm not in the mind of Trump, Netanyahu, or the supreme leader. But I slightly can see, having worked in the Middle East, that some of these things have to be done for various audiences, and some play acting, and again, I don't want to trivialize what's going on at all, has to be gone through for certain internal audiences and external audiences. But if Donald Trump can say, right, they were listening to me, quite right to, let's get back on. The Iranians know that they are hugely vulnerable. Frankly, they can't do anything about Israeli strikes. And we do not have a higher body count at the moment, and we can get a ceasefire again. Honor, maybe, we feel, be satisfied on all sides at this stage. It'll still be very fragile because of the divisions, I think, within Iran, which are really, really major.
Well, Sir Simon Mail, thanks so much for your expertise, for responding to what is a live and developing matter live on national television. Really do appreciate your time. Retired British Army officer, of course.
Thank you very much.
I think I should use this moment just to read out that full statement from Donald Trump. He says, Israel is not going to attack Iran. All planes will turn around and head home while doing a friendly plane wave to Iran. Nobody will be hurt. The ceasefire is in effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States.
Well, I think we should pick this up after the break, don't you? Let's get to the headlines.
Thank you. The headlines at 12:30. Donald Trump says both Israel and Iran have violated the ceasefire in the Middle East just hours after it came into effect. Speaking to reporters, Mr. Trump said he didn't like that Israel unloaded right after they agreed to that ceasefire.
I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong.
The government published its national security strategy, which said the UK needed to be more competitive and robust in science, education, trade and technology. New figures show that grocery prices are now 4.7% more expensive than a year ago as supermarket inflation hit its highest level since March last year. And Amazon says it'll invest £40 billion in the UK over the next 3 years as it creates thousands of jobs and opens 4 new warehouses. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays,